All right. So, welcome everybody to Simplified Symbolism. Gonna be looking at some things to do with the Monroe Institute and Dr. Robert Allen Monroe, RAM for short. Uh, I actually kind of wanted to start off with, how I see things, I guess. Digging into all the Hollywood stuff all the time. Really, we could use pretty much any fighting film for this, or any superhero film. They all have the same story structures and they're built on these same principles. But this is like one of my, I don't have like a favorite film or a favorite song. Everything's on a spectrum and they all kind of roll around, and some sit higher to the top while others float down towards the bottom. And this one's always been kind of up there as underrated film. Kind of got washed out with the rest of the 2000s and 99 movie franchises. But the interesting thing about this is that Wesley Snipes plays the character Monroe Hutchins. Now, when they typically pick names for these movies, people just say, oh, it's happenstance or coincidence or whatever other excuse you can come up with. I don't think it is. When you have the most influential group of people who produce content on a global scale, on a world scale, when they choose names and they choose times and numbers and shooting locations and all these things, there's hundreds and hundreds of millions of dollars. There's thousands and thousands of people involved typically. Not in all films. Obviously, you have some small budget indie films that use a lot less. But the same thing still happens. When a writer writes a story, they pick things purposely. It's not necessarily random, or at least they assume it isn't. So you got Monroe Hutchins here, who is in prison because he lost control of his emotions once when his wife cheated on him and he killed the guy who she was cheating with. So he's been sitting in prison for 10 years, becoming the heavyweight boxing champ of the prison boxing system at the Sweetwater prison out in the Mojave Desert. And Iceman Chambers here, Ving Rhames. Iceman Chambers is his character name in the movie. So you kind of got like a fire and ice, really. And Ving Rhames is like the heavyweight world champion on the main stage, like outside of prison. And he gets caught up with some call girls who want to convict him or get money out of him or whatever. They want to sue him for sexual charges. And so he ends up in the same prison with Wesley Snipes, and this becomes a big deal. Peter Falk is like a big mobster in the film, and he kind of sets up the fight from the inside. He's been watching Wesley his time there in prison. He knows he's good, thinks he can take on this champ, and they can win a bunch of money. So they set the fight up, and it goes through, it really walks through the whole, each stage going up to it until obviously the final match, just like any boxing movie. So, one of the most important parts, though, in the film, I think, is when Hutchins gets put in solitary confinement because it's this whole big ordeal. Ving Rhames can't stop bugging the dude. I mean, he's pissed off to be there in the first place. He wants to be out in the real world where he's the champ anyway. He doesn't even want to do this fight. But then, they bicker and go back and forth, and they end up getting in some disputes, and Monroe ends up in solitary, right? That's going to be the easiest. You keep the world famous champ is going to be able to roam free in the prison, while the dude who's been there for 10 years, like, yeah, just throw him in solitary until this is over. So while he's sitting in there, there's this dialogue that goes here, which hopefully this will show. I don't know if it's pausing my screen. It's only
it's
showing you
almost
the.
there.
Yeah, okay, so it's only going to show you this. I edited it so it was actually stretched out so you know who's talking, because this is just pure text from the film. Um, Shit, I wish I could pull that up somehow now. Won't let me, hmm. Oh well. Well, the whole big thing about it here, I can kind of see where he's talking anyway. Um, she was asking him, like, are you afraid? How do you feel about solitary confinement? He says he likes it, and she's like, you're kidding, right? Yeah, right here. Right, how are your spirits? Um, I want you to know I'm not in favor of solitary confinement. So this is all this Darlene early talking to Monroe, while he's in solitary. And, they kind of have this back and forth. Are you going to spirits? Yeah, see, she's actually talking right here and says, you can't be serious because he says it's okay in here. And he says it's all prison. I live inside my head. And she asks, so that's how you're doing your time? Are you really in control of your emotions? He says, been that way all my life. Only time I ever lost it is what got me in here. So that's when and they flash back to that moment. He beats up the dude that, is cheating on his wife. She says she's familiar with the case history, and do you prefer your own company? Says most of the time. I'm supposed to recommend whether or not you seem to require a detailed psychiatric evaluation other than the incident in the mess hall. And he says that wasn't me. Why don't you go talk to the hotshot champ? So it keeps going for a minute here, all about it. He's trying to transfer out, not even do this fight. And yeah, so here we go. She asks, "Aren't you afraid of him?" And he says, "Afraid? Shit, no." Right? In Wesley Pipes' voice. He's a fighter. I'm a fighter. If I'm better on that day, I win. That's just how it goes. Someday every fighter loses. Sooner or later, somebody comes along and they got your ticket. Too old. Just wasn't your day. Whatever the reason is. Yeah, whatever the reason is, in the end, everybody gets beaten. The most you can hope for is to stay on top a while. Be the best. And that's where it ends the scene. Let's start some other scene here. So I know that was kind of hard to get through all that. I wish the edited portion was up. That would have been easier to read off. But essentially, like the biggest thing about this film is at the end of it, Wesley Snipes ends up winning, right? And he's kind of smaller. Ving Rhames is like a taller guy. He's probably closer to 6'2". And it's obviously a movie. It doesn't really matter. But how it's being portrayed is like, Ving Rhames is this massive powerhouse dude coming from the outside. So you would say that's like a wild animal. Wesley Snipes, on the other hand, is a caged animal. Now, in the animal world, what would happen, right? I don't think we actually need to take like a wild tiger and a caged tiger and put them in a cage together to see what will happen. Most likely, the wild animal will kill the caged animal. With humans, I think this is where we see the difference. This is the best way I could describe like abstract thought and what it is and what it does and how this consciousness works. And that's essentially the difference. Like that's all it is. It's like a simple inverse is all it is. Um, Now, why do I think that's so important? I have no idea. I've been getting hit with all sorts of little visions and weird stuff as of late. And, I mean, this stuff's happened to me for years, but lately it's been kind of lighting up like fireworks. And, Mr. Rioso asked me about if I had read Robert Monroe. Um, and I have, and I've went through some of his stuff at times. I kind of went through some yesterday and today just to prepare for this a little bit. And so I don't know. I really found like just this film and how it's portrayed. I think that they actually took on those principles from those like Robert Monroe or Carl Castaneda or a lot of the spiritual New Age groups in general. Any one of them, take your pick. But they've fed it into these films because the major Hollywood box office film, the job of it is to reach the most amount of eyes, right? And that's generally anybody's purpose if they're trying to be successful in the material world, gain total capitalism. So with these films, like you want to increase your maximum amount of subscribers. So you want to put in like not everybody's into boxing, not everyone's into fighting, not everyone's into these other things. So they seed all of this extra little information into it. That way that you grow your audience. You're trying to expand to the most amount of eyes, no matter what story you're telling. So yeah. So I just wanted to have the word pulled up for that movie title, Undisputed, just like any other movie like Unstoppable, which Wesley Snipes also did 2 years later, and another one released in 2009 with Denzel Washington and Chris Pine. That was a totally different type of movie about a runaway train. So the thing about all these movies is that that's in there all the time. So they labeled the World Organization the UN, right? United Nations. So when you see those two letters in front of stuff, I don't know. I'm not 100% sure, but I would think the hands of the organization that is at the top of the world, supposedly, probably has something to do with that. Um, just as the names and titles of everything, the countries, the states, cities, etc. Like, you can find names over and over and over again. Think of Springfield from The Simpsons. Because in reality, there is some 36 Springfields, in 36 of the 50 states. Now, I guess this gets us a little more into the main character, except it's not. This is actually Dr. Bob, the founder of AA. Also, kind of occurred relatively around the same time period as Rob Monroe, or Bob Monroe, was born in 1915. And as we can see here, this Bob Smith, Robert Holbrook Smith, born a little bit before, died about the time that Bob Monroe started doing his writings. I think as we were talking earlier, Mr. Rioso, you said he started around 1950 something. Now this kind of goes into a whole 58. Okay, a little later, but still,
it overlaps.
Yeah, and the overlap of it is what I'm really keying in on because my concept of what Bob is. I mean, yes, there's people named Bob, there's people named Robert who go by Bob, but what I think Bob is, like Dr. Bob, who they claim that this guy is from Akron, Ohio, I think it was an AI software. Now, that comes with a whole bunch of, what would you call them, conniptions, problems. Because I don't exactly think AI is what it's being sold. So it's just software. And maybe it could be some other type of, what would you call it? Astral connection to the unknown that works in some similar way to which we operate.
Well,
But
the inspects, or what Robert Monroe calls inspects, intelligent species, they say that when the world where we are, they call it a biological energy pattern. When it was created, they knew that there would be um, issues, problems, and they would have to fix things. They'd have to be part of the process. And then the way he tells it, they give him a rote or a thought bubble, and it's like a download of a whole, yeah, a visual image loaded with information. And he says he sees the planet and all of the inspects are there, adjusting the oil and the pressure so the AI thing is basically our unconscious understanding of that. There is another um, aspect to this, what we're in, that is being guided, if you like. It is being moved along by the adjustments that these inspects are making. And when it comes, like you're saying before, the movies and stuff, well, all of those people are unconsciously, like, where does the idea come from? Where does the inspiration come from? It's being inserted so that this message it will go in at some level. Would people get different meanings from just watching a movie or listening to a song, or depending on your consciousness? That's what I was saying before. These gems of truth that seem so simple. So in an unconscious state, we don't. We just take it as a surface. Oh, that's really nice. But once we become more conscious, the profundity of the information contained in such a simple thing, it becomes multi-leveled. And the same with movies, same with this. It's like these are insertions um, in a simple manner, in an unconscious way. You don't see what it is, and yet within the conscious state, it has such a profound meaning. The connections, the synchronicity of it all. You start to see it. It starts happening real time for you, like individually. And again, like the movement that was created through this Bob, if you know what I mean. As you say, AI, but it's an inception of an idea that was then brought forward to create this AA, like, which is again assisting people who would be lost, if you like, within alcoholism.
That would be my
Also,
point.
as well. Oh, sorry, man.
Go ahead, Silas.
Also, as well, Robert Holbrook Smith was also, I'm reading here, he was part of the Sumpsic Lodge number 27 in St. Johnsbury, Vermont. And he was, he was a Mason. The AA as well, Alcoholics Anonymous, could also be related to the thelemic um, designation or degree. I forget what they call it in Thelema. Is it Thelema? It might be the Golden Dawn or the Ordo Templar Orientis. I forget which one now. But you have the designation, the degree, the grade of Argentum Astrum, which is the Silver Star. The Silver Star, of course, relates to Sirius, the blazing star, or the star of the lodge, the star to the east. Sirius effectively is that man's best friend, if you will, right? The dog star. Of course, reverse that, you get God, and it's the star which guides man, which is at the feet of Orion, he is always there, and of course it represents our esoteric son, our spirit. Um, so there's that as well, and also I was just going to mention too, because I was looking up some of the strange correlations between I think it is the Ordo Templi Orientis and the Alcoholics Anonymous. So of course we have the AA. There's a connection there, but we have with Alcoholics Anonymous the if I can find it, he talks about the Spiritus contra Spiritus. Yep, here we go. Spiritus contra Spiritum. When a patient came to him, this Dr. Bob, Roland H was the patient's name. His only hope of recovery from his alcoholism was a spiritus contra spiritum, so a spiritual experience to counter the spirit of alcohol, if you will. And so within this was a surrendering of the ego to a higher power, to thus, be rid of the I guess the demonic possession of the alcoholism. That's how it was sort of framed. Interestingly, with the Argentum Astrum, that grade, within that grade, there's of the initiate, it is demanded of them of an abolition of the ego to thus reach the knowledge and conversation to the holy guardian angel of that degree. And then, of course, with Alcoholics Anonymous, you have a series of 12 steps towards spiritual awakening, the 12, of course, of the zodiacal wheel. And then Argentum Astrum, you have a series of grades based on the Kabbalistic tree of life towards enlightenment, of which there are 11. But if you include the Ein, that's 12. And then we have in Alcoholics Anonymous, members remain anonymous to the public, principles before personalities in Argentum Astrum. Members of the inner order are sworn to keep their identity a secret. So there are parallels between all of this, and it's rather strange, of course, that he was also a Mason. So you can imagine that informed the organization, and as he was building it up from its foundations.
Yes, very good. Yeah, and I had this other part pulled up, belladonna cure, right? That's one of the treatments other than institutionalization. Um, for whatever reason, when I saw that, the first thing I thought of was the Lady in Red, your Matrix reference. Um, and I mean, listening to like what this is, I remember learning about this back when I was in AA and rehab and such. This is a crazy combo of stuff to take, um, and also the delirium tremens. Those things are not something you want to mess around with. So if you get to the point that you would have to take this stuff, I mean, you're pretty down bad. But it's all struggle. It's all part of the process.
It's part of the dissolution, isn't it? I mean, you're dissolving your normal, everyday consciousness, if you like. I mean, that's super powerful stuff. To do that for 50 hours, you're going to basically dissolve any. Like Monroe says, we became addicted to living, that life here. We became addicted to it. And instead of come visiting and having that experience and then leaving, he says, as we leave, we think, oh, I just want to go back one more time to experience this or that. And so it would seem that the ones who are most stuck, if you like, in their addiction need to dissolve their, you know, this life's memory so they can actually access their previous or their more truer self, or align themselves with the guidance they need to let go of this addiction. Because life is the addiction, not the stuff we use within.
Yeah.
Interestingly, as well, is Tropa Belladonna, is that not a Deadly Nightshade?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah. Yeah, I was gonna say.
Alamein,
It also means beautiful lady in Italian as well. Interesting.
Yeah.
That's what I'm saying. That's like the Lady in Red in the Matrix, right? It's
Yeah.
belladonna.
Just
Madonna.
to go to the serious thing you're saying. So the Mayan cycle till 2012, the closing of the cycle of history, actually opened up the new cycle, which is the Sirius cycle. So the new year and the Mayan calendar is on the 26th of July, which you have the helical rising of Sirius with the sun on the dawn of the 26th of July. So the new cycle was initiated on the 26th of July 2013, which was the halfway mark from 1987, which was the calm and a convergence, to line up with the end and the closing of the cycle. And this cycle finishes in 2039. So we're 13 years into this new cycle, the first Sirius cycle, which goes on till 4,900 or something. This is a new time and frequency that is establishing now. And the last 13 years, I would say, is maybe the closing of the cycle of history cut off the unconscious repetition of history. And the last 13 years is this forcing, if you like, or the pressure of all of the unconscious things that need to be expressed. That's why we've had so much turmoil and so much stuff
Mm-hmm.
going on, absurdity, because that has to be played out. And now we're at the center point, which is why I see all this synchronicity starting to happen again. It's like I started on this in 2002, so over 10 years living outside of the normal time and frequency, and the synchronicities were just happening all of the time. And then for the last, since 2012, not so much so, but um, being moved to where I am now. Um, and yeah, now it's kicking in again. And I think we're all experiencing a similar thing, that um, older stuff, things, memories, experiences, are all starting to come back up, to re-emerge into a more synthesized understanding of what this all is.
Yeah, I guess like the requiem of a dream, in some sense. I mean, I've also seen that as well. I likened it a couple of years back to, it's like what Zappa said. This theater will go on as long as it is profitable to do so, and that doesn't just mean, of course, with financial profit, but in terms of energetic profit, akin to what, of course, Monroe and such was talking about. And by the way, it wasn't just Monroe. The CIA also did an analysis of the Gateway program, and they also came to the conclusion within. In fact, I'll get the name of it when we go on, but they came to the conclusion that all of the cosmos is effectively overlapping energy fields. So they're of that opinion as well. Anyway, it's akin to the theatre in which we've enjoyed the beautiful reverie of the show, if you will, for a good, what I would say, 100 years or so, and we are now getting to the point, and you're starting to see it because the younger generations are starting to get anemoia, which is this nostalgia for a time they've actually never lived, and of course that's being propelled by them viewing the sort of old vintage films of times gone by. And basically, what has happened is the theatre production now is breaking down all of um, the thugs have came into the theatre, and they've pulled down all of the curtains, all of the props. The stage is being dismantled as we speak, and people are seeing what was there all along. What was there was fundamentally just four brick walls, you know. So the thing was a complete and utter charade, and yeah, so yeah, absolutely, it's all breaking down. But like what you're saying, those things have to be expressed. It's like
Yeah,
we've psychically bottled up all of this for years and years and years. It's not even that we have to express the sort of primitive aspects of our psyche. Even some of the shadows that have bottled up as well. Those have to be worked out and processed. Um, but it's the sort of weird phoniness of it all, and I think it's really hit home culturally. And I think we're at a cultural inflection point where people, I think they see it. They see that, quite frankly, we've been lied to. Even the things that we're nostalgic for, we're not really nostalgic for them for that time period. What we're nostalgic for is the bliss of ignorance. We want to just go. A lot of people want to go back to sleep, but they can never go back to sleep. It's too late. Once you're awake, you're awake. It's like when you're in a dream and you become lucid. You you can't become unlucid. You know, you can there's no reversing that lucidity. You basically either remain lucid or you wake up, right? So yeah, absolutely.
That's the cipher.
I wanted to chime in on that, Silas. Yeah. But I think what's happening right now is, yes, people seem to be awakening, right? But they're not spiritually awakening, so it's a false awakening. It's like the second coming of Christ, so to speak, in that regard, because it's a false reality. Like they see through the lies, but the biggest lie they don't see through is themselves. So I think this cycle does happen all the time.
That's a
the
great point.
uniqueness of this place, the what Monroe is saying is that it goes with like archaic. So he sort of delved into what's this all about, and it's like this is a biological energy pattern that doesn't normally happen. It's like most planets with this kind of life are shielded with a vapor canopy, so you don't get to see the sun and the moon and the stars. And because we do here, we have a different um, consciousness. We've evolved language, whereas on other places it's a non-verbal communication where you get the full understanding, the full meaning in a non-verbal way, and that's what we're doing here. Is moving from that state, but the gifts that we've got through our experience here are going to be so valuable in the next part. It's like when we think of the golden age, it's like the first ones coming here. They did all of their, the good stuff. They had the great experiences, and now as we come towards the end, there's only this like negative experiences that need to be expressed, and all the ones who are doing the deep negative dark stuff seem to be the ones who've been here the longest, who, tied to these families, and it's for them to, they had all the good stuff and they kept coming back, so now they have to do all this negative unconscious stuff. Has to be played out. Hence why, the chosen are here to push us through, like to wake us up from this dream, wake us up from this unconscious reality that we're living in.
Well, I think waking up to a lie is sort of a forced awakening. Like, you know, hey, there's a lie, look into it. But then they don't go farther than that. So I think I think there is a percentage that will go farther than that and see the lie all the way to themselves, and then they stop. And it's hard to explain. But I
Well,
think this
Monroe,
cycle is going on all the time. Like it's forever in existence because it has to be.
well, Monroe says we are here, we are developing a left brain, so we have this analytical function, so we can identify the lie, we can identify what's true and what's not. So it is the development of this left brain analytical logic, reasoning function, so that we can actually see for ourselves what's true and what's not. And this has been the process. That if we were all in the right brain, we would just be in this dreamy, creative state, whereas most of the world are right-handed, left-brained. And it's only recently that even left-handers have even been involved in what's going on. So if you look back, all of the world leaders, all of the people who decide where we're going, have all been right-handed, left-brained people.
I think as well that civilization also lends itself to this sort of really strange, overly materialistic and logical um, deduction of the world around them. And the problem with that is when you start to turn that into, I guess, a hyperstition of sorts, where that becomes the almost the idol, the false sun at the center of your solar system in terms of your thinking, then you begin to actually view the entire world through that lens, and it doesn't show you the world as it is, or it doesn't provide you a deeper understanding of the world. What it does is it distorts the world around you. So, for example, in our world today, And though it is changing very well, I'd say slowly, but it's more rapidly by the year. But there's a weird fascination with measuring everything. Everything must be measured. Everything must be accounted for. So you get into this really weird sort of hyper reality where people are working in fake jobs in a fake economy, to to basically get fake money, and they're basing their entire existence around this rather than actually expressing the deepest dimensions of their own soul. So it's like, for example, what you were seeing with the caged animal, what Reagan was mentioning with the caged animal and the wild animal. You know, the caged animal is akin to like the MK Ultra, right? That's what the system was seeking to do, and arguably that's what they did with social media and DARPA LifeLog. Of course, that ended the day that Facebook started. No coincidence there, of course, right? But um, you have the wild animal, which is, I think, what's being developed now. And people are becoming more spiritual, they're becoming more in tune. The problem is, a lot of them are going to religion right now. A lot are not as well. A lot are, beginning to develop this on their own personal, in their own personal space, upon their own sort of you know uh, grounds or pejorative, I guess. Um, but yeah, so that's more the gateway, I guess, on the one hand. So yeah,
The
absolutely.
metaphor, really, if you look
Mhm.
deeper, is you've got the wild animal, if you like. So that's somebody who's famous in the unconscious, and the hero one is in solitary confinement. It's not the caged animal. It means that you can only discover the truth when you're solitary within yourself,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
he becomes the winner. This is it's a deep, um, there's deep lessons in this stuff. Only if you can perceive it in the right way. And then again, that's what I say. It comes through this conscious level within yourself, with the meaning that you could have missed 50 times, 100 times. And as we grow within ourselves, the meaning just reveals itself through that solitary confinement, to confine yourself within yourself and
Hmm.
not be distracted by the wild animals in the world, if you like. And Monroe says as well that, um, where our logical left brain has gotten us to is that we've developed radio telescopes to pick up signals of advanced species, and it's like he says, it's like us, you know, picking up the exhaust fumes from a car and looking for consciousness. It's like we don't understand that beyond here there is no radio signal from a from an advanced culture, because they do not use language, and they don't need spaceships to travel. It's instantaneous communication through a technology way beyond anything we could imagine. And for all of what we've done, looking for space exploration, trying to pick up signals, it's so primitive because we're still in our own unconscious kind of projection of what we think the world is and what we think consciousness is. And yet, once you're on the other side of it, it is all self-evident. Everything is embedded with meaning, but it's not in language. It's not in our logical, how we describe our experience in this unconscious state. And that's what all of the bright sparks, if you like, the great teachers. That's why I say there's many soldiers, very few saints. But if you look at the lives
Hmm.
of saints, they all live the same lives. They take themselves away somewhere quiet by themselves, and they have a spark, and their words are so simple, and their message is so true, that it is, that's the sparks what have created the shift, if you like, through time, that these inspects, if you like, have popped in, gave a simple message in how they're trying to communicate this non-verbal communication and put it into our language, so that it will lead us onwards into trying to understand their language. And that's why in dreams and in these altered states of consciousness, we can't describe what it is because we can't confine it to our own language, to our own understanding. And that's why it's all in symbols and metaphors, if you like, or imagery that is imbued with information. And I don't know, I've had all these ideas for years, and reading the Monroe stuff, he just got it so succinctly in his explorations. He doesn't understand himself. He's the first to say, I have no idea what's happening. And they say
No,
it's okay.
yeah.
You will, you'll understand. We'll just do some adjustments, and
Well, that
and
that
then he gets it.
that's what occurs with like what you're saying, the sort of the introverted hermit. You know, you
Yeah,
I think it was even Monroe that mentioned it in Far Journeys, because I recall I listened to it a couple of times audio through it was the audiobook version, and he mentioned that you're not here to win, you're here to remember. And
yeah,
I recall when I was, perhaps not now, I'll probably go back to it, but when I, for the good couple of years there, when I was just like turning out books and notes and all of that, a lot of it you're not even thinking, you're not consciously thinking about it. It's like
that's it.
you're yeah, it's like you're lost, you're lost in channeling something, right? It's not necessarily you,
It's being
but it's you.
experienced.
Yes, exact.
Yeah,
So it's it's those types of acts, right? And of course, they can occur in any way, but it's going into that sort of flow state, and it's being sort of lit up by that inspiration, that grace of God, if you will, right? That
yeah,
you
because
begin to realize that everything breaks down. You realize that life is not about necessarily material acquisition. Of course, you've got to keep yourself watered and fed and have shelter, and you have to socialize and have a companion. But beyond that, life is not about this sort of kleptomania, right? Or this material acquisition through careerism or whatever it may be. Those things are to diminish your time, to diminish your energy, which is divine. And it's to ensure you never wake up, you never remember who you are, because once you realize who you are, the control, the economy of control that they've built up around us, this illusory facade, that completely crumbles. It goes. It completely vanishes.
it's like Jose Arguelles, he says we're here to create the vegetable root. So our physical body is a vegetable root that becomes the antenna that can bring in the signals from outside. I mean, in the dynamics of time, we evolve into a culture of kind of earth wizards in a sedentary garden, taking care of the garden, but spending most of our time in trance states so that we can journey on the other side. So that, this is where we're going. Is this culture what we're in now is the last recycling, if you like, of the unconscious. So when the shift happens, we become conscious, and then the goal will be to create the garden culture so that the earth is back to its original state of plant and animal life that we have disrupted. And our purpose is to rejoin with our soul boat, as they call it. So you are part of a team. We're only a fraction of the whole. And the reunification of the whole is so that we can transverse and travel within the hyperdimensional theater of time, which is the pure mind state. And all of this, what we're learning is our dreams, and actually the physical reality is the projection of the dream, and the lessons are within it. But it's only through our consciousness expansion that we understand the lessons. This is the process we're going through.
So I guess an interesting thing we could get onto as well with Robert Monroe is the idea of loosh. What do you guys all think of this idea? Of course, he mentioned it in Far Journeys. I think he also mentioned it in another book, but it's primarily far journeys. What are
Yeah,
your
but it's
opinions on that?
the creative juice.
It's energy, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's the creative energy of the whole. That we are learning how to harness it. How to create it, how to make it, how to expand it.
I mean, you do
The
anyway to a
whole.
degree, don't you? If someone's happy, that can make you happy, and if someone's down, that can bring you down. So, there's already there's already a connection, isn't there? I don't know
Yeah, but
about like farming
the
and
whole.
then getting a good feeling off people's bad, like a Schadenfreude. Yeah, maybe could be. I think it pops up in Celtic mythology, doesn't it?
But
The
it's
idea
like
of
the soul trap thing and stuff like that. It's if you read on in the book, he actually describes that it's actually the process of
Yes.
refining the loosh, and the highest form of loosh is love. So we have
Yeah.
to go through the process of how we create these different grades, if you like, or different types of loosh, and yet the whole process is the unity, the oneness that we get to, so that it's love. That all things dissolve into that pure white loosh, and that's to finish the game. That was the purpose of the creation, and we are creators. That's what he gets to at the end.
Yeah.
It's like we are learning to be the creators, so that we can create the same format, if you like. We will go on to create our own world, which will then develop to produce the loosh. So
Yeah.
it's the fluid, or the substance, if you like, or whatever you want to call it, that the God goes way beyond. It's like just on the basics here. These He says it's someone from somewhere created this place, and there's more of them. And then later he's saying, you become one of these. The inspects that he's talking to, he works out later
Mhm.
that it's actually him in higher dimensional form that's coming
Yeah.
back, teaching all this stuff. And that's what I get. I couldn't get into religion and put myself externally. I always just had to believe in myself, and these junctures where significant things happened in my life was pushing me back to just believe in yourself, stay with yourself. Don't give it to external forces, or put some name on something external to yourself. And that's, yeah, when I had the big trips with mushroom and ayahuasca. Yeah, I saw this amazing being, and it's like, oh my God, is this God? And it's like, no, I'm you. And it was like, I can't believe that. And it kind of said, well, you have to. And it's the same. This communication you get, it's not in language, but in a know. And these experiences, it's hard to explain to somebody how it's far more real than reality. The experience you have is so profound. It reaches into every part of your body. You know it and understand it through every pore, sort of thing. And no experience in reality is going to come anywhere close to that kind of knowing or knowledge. I mean, again, it's what brings peace. Once you understand that it's the actual not believing in something, but actually knowing something that brings peace. And that peace is the profound connection to the loosh, because that loosh is what brings the peace, what creates the peace, what it's all about, if you like.
And the loosh itself is basically mundane emotional energy that's generated through experiential, um, basically experiential toroids, because that's what experience is. I think experience itself etymologically comes from expere, which means to put to the test. So basically, what you're producing is like a form of intensity or a form of contrast, which itself is geometrically expressed through, of course, the toroid. Right? You have the those three sections of the toroid, of course. The two extremes where, of course, the psychic funnel expands, and then, of course, you have the central sort of bottleneck. And so, yeah, absolutely, yeah. It's not necessarily, it's being harvested or anything like that. that's not what he was
It's
meaning.
only
But
for again for the unconscious that we we have this fear, that something's controlling us or something's
yeah,
harvesting or whatever. But we have to experience things to overcome fear. That's the whole purpose. We
exactly.
have to experience. There is no good and evil. There is no devil and God or anything like that. It's just our unconscious thoughts that create this, which then propels us into experience of
Hmm.
what we're fearful of, and overcoming that fear brings peace.
Yeah, and
It's just a cycle.
that's the thing. I don't actually agree with the Buddhist position, which is that everything is suffering and the purpose of incarnation is suffering
Yeah,
and all of
fuck
that.
that shit.
Yeah, it's that doesn't make any sense at all. It's
No,
and
no,
it,
no.
it's it's extremely
So
egoistic as well.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, I mean, suffering implies, at least legally, suffering implies what's the word? Like going along with it.
we
There's an
suffer.
element of that in suffering. When
Mhm.
you look at the legal definition, you're not a victim of suffering. You choose to suffer. It's like suffrage. The
We
whole
Yeah.
suffer
voting
through our
thing.
own
It's
effort to
Mm.
understand. Yeah, the suffering comes from our effort to understand. Because we push ourselves into this trying to understand what things are, we suffer from in ourselves because of the experiences we create through our efforts of trying to understand what it is. That's what it means. It's not everything is suffering. Well, for most part, most people, yeah, it is. But the key, what Buddha's talking about, is understand it's your effort to try and understand that pushes you into experience that makes you suffer. Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
because
and
that's the
that
process
makes
up.
Because, like in Dzogchen, it's like everything has already been accomplished. And so, having overcome the suffering of effort, one finds oneself in the self affected state. This is the last part of Buddha's teaching, which most people don't get to, right? Because the key in it is there. There's only 5 lines to the Dzogchen. That's all it is. Yeah, which tells you where you are, what you are, and why. And that's why I was trying to say yesterday to Noble all of these experiences that I had. So I died in India first in '94, and that was kind of a shock. I was pulled out of reality. I saw my life, and I came back, and I was in shock. But I couldn't process the shock because I was in India and you're traveling, and there's so many new things. But then a year later, the same thing happened to me again in Holland, and I came back from that one, and all I was saying is, all is good, all is good. And then I find Dzogchen, and it tells me, all is good. And then I had an ayahuasca experience where I exploded into 1,000 pieces, and every single one of them was me saying, all is good. So it's that understanding that, through your own effort of trying to understand, you will suffer, but all is good. Once you got the key, it's like you can suffer indefinitely. It doesn't matter because you know it's all good. It's good for you, you know. And those events now, when I look back, help me um, to process the reality that I was about to confront by letting go of everything in my life and traveling all over. I had no volition or control over what was happening in my life. I just had to accept it and move with it. And those experiences gave me the fortitude to do so, I guess. I left my family, my friends, and everybody behind and set off on this path where I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I have to do this. It gave me the fortitude to say, okay, there's a path here. I have to follow it. And then even looking back further, there's been a thread through things since I was a child, just showing me little synchronicities, little things happening. And then all the time I was traveling, when I found myself lost and alone and in a foreign country and thinking, what the hell am I going to do now? And it was just this thing, just relax, just wait. And always somebody would come and help me. It always happened. And it's establishing that trust within yourself that help you face whatever You know, it doesn't really matter what experience you got to go through because you're ready for it. You know.
All right, I was just making sure no one was gonna jump on again. All right, now I don't really have anywhere to go. That was very well said. Um, yeah, a lot of this stuff becomes very confusing. It's very easy to get lost, sidetracked, tangents. Even right now, I'm completely lost. My train of thought's gone. Holy shit. Um, yeah, I think another very important question that I get a lot is how do you escape? I think that was one thing I wanted to touch on because that's a question
Define it.
that, huh? Own it?
Define it.
All
What do you
right.
mean by that?
Oh,
Give it
exit.
more words.
Um, so like when you die, there's quite a few theories out there. Uh, most are pretty well aware of reincarnation from the Buddhist side. And the other various ones are along the lines of simulation theory, digital theory, aliens, interdimensional beings. The list goes on. So, most people think this place is like a prison, or it could be seen like a school, and they would like to exit, is a question I receive a lot. Um, and I always answer with another question, which is how do you know that when you were wherever you were before you got here, that you didn't choose to come here?
But it talks about there's a sleep. At first, he's trying to formulate, well, does everybody go out of their body when they sleep? And I was just reading it yesterday. He goes back to this sleep school, and he said, as far as the eye can see, there's these misty kind of forms of people, and they say, "Oh, I haven't seen you for a while," and he's like, "Oh yeah, but I'm different now because I'm not asleep." And they say, "Oh, well, you can't come in here," and he goes, "How can I just sit in on the lesson again?" And it's basically where everybody goes when they're in deep sleep. And the lesson is write a list. List A is all of the worries and all of the stresses and all of the things that you're concerned about um, tomorrow. And then he says, and then list B is to write down all of the things that you can do something about today. And list C is all of the things that you want to do. And then he says, so then you take list A and throw it away. Take list B and do one thing that's on that list today. And then keep doing that until you've only got list C of the things you want to do. And this is the basic lesson for everybody when they sleep. And then they say, okay, you can't, you've grown now. You have to go somewhere else. And he said, oh, there's more. He said, oh, there's schools everywhere to learn anything you want. So it's that, if people are still in that state of trying to learn when we sleep, so there's a constant teaching going on through your whole life. And that's when we were talking the other night about dreams. And I asked this question quite a lot years ago when I was working with people. They would talk mundane stuff, what's on TV. And I said, hey, when you were a kid, did you actually dream of flying? And I got these old dudes and their face lights up and they're like, oh, yeah, I remember flying. I flew over to school and I did this and I did that. And that's where I got the thing where, well, we all must do the same. When we're young, we're so free in our minds that we can fly, you know. And it was so common that most people had these dreams. And again, the thing about, do you dream in color or black and white seems to be another thing that as we, I don't know, learn lessons, the quality of the dream changes, and it's kind of like the dreams are there, but it's our attention. When we focus our attention, some lesson will be there, some bit of information that we're supposed to decipher within a dream. Again, it's these inspects are, you can't say higher selves, but the other side of ourselves. They're trying to communicate these ideas to us, but our brains will form um, familiar things around what they're trying to communicate, because it's a nonverbal communication. So our brain tries to represent things in a familiar way to us using our own memory. And yet within the dream there will be something there that's the lesson. And then if we maintain this unconscious state, then we miss the lessons. It just seems like we have these strange dreams and weird things are going on. But it's more as we develop and become more conscious, the dreams start to, for myself anyway, it was always a deja vu. It becomes deja vu, and I don't dream of anything except something that's going to happen next. And for many years, that's how I could keep going in what I was doing, because I would always find myself maybe 6 weeks, 6 months after the dream in that place with those people. So you're actually living the lesson live in your reality. So they give you the information in the dream, and then it becomes the reality, and then you learn the lesson by experiencing it physically. Does that make sense?
Well, none of it makes sense. You know that. It's supposed to be confusing. That's the point. Like, the whole point of this channel, the simplify symbolism, that's the point. The point is that it doesn't make sense. It won't make sense. Like, the best you can do is, 99%. You can get right to it, but there is no perfection, because perfection is the existence.
It's got to be beyond you, isn't it?
Yes.
It has to be beyond your ken. Otherwise, I don't think you'd be able to maintain the illusion. It's got
And
to
you
be
wouldn't
unknowable.
be here.
We're limited by.
You wouldn't be here.
Yeah, exactly.
That's if you break it all down,
I've
deduce it all,
given more
compress
and
it
more on
all,
that.
you wouldn't be here in the sense that you are,
Yeah, materialism is like a cul-de-sac. There's a law of diminishing returns that prevents, sort of any real worthy exploration. Like the real journey is inner. It's always going to be that. It's
Yeah.
not material. It's
If
like,
we take for
or
granted
sort of cross. I like the radio analogy, where you tune into a slightly different reality. Into that idea.
Yeah, well, that's what I'm trying to say. If we stay focused entirely in our physical reality and trying to decipher what it is, we're never going to find the answers, because the
It's a
actual reality is.
sandbox.
Well,
It's
Monroe
limited.
calls it a rote. Yeah, he calls it a rote.
Oh, what?
A rote, ROTE.
Okay, yeah.
Which is like he says it's like a ball, and then it
Hold on, I
opens
got
up,
it
and
here.
there's images and information. So we have to sort of delve into our, unconscious mind, the sleep state, to try and receive the message, if you like, and
Yeah.
then it becomes reality, so that we can live the experience of understanding what it is.
Yeah, because we're going to create
So,
it. You just got to have the right desire. You got to change your dream. That's what it's about, isn't it? That's the problem with the
Here's
West. Is the dream in the West is all wrong.
You're trying to tune to that frequency, if you like, where the rope comes in the unconscious. And once it's in you, it will express itself in the physical so that you can live the lesson. I mean, he basically starts, they tell him he needs to get more energy or he needs adjustment. So they actually create physical realities for him, simulated physical realities where there's a lesson. And one of the first ones, he finds himself flying in a plane and his mate saying to him, "Quick, Bob, we've got to land the plane because you've got an appointment." And he tries to land the plane, and the only place he can land the plane is on the roof. And so he lands the plane on the roof, and then he looks around, and his friend's gone, and he's wondering, what's going on. And then it goes click, and he starts again, and then his friend's going, "I've got to land the plane," and then he thinks, "Oh, I can't land it on the roof, so I'll land it on the road." Oh, but there's all these people in the way, and he lands the plane, and then it goes click, and it starts again, and he does it again, and then in the end he says, "No, no, I won't borrow your plane. I've just cancelled the appointment." And I go, click. And that's the lesson learned. It's like the Buddhist one. I'm walking down the street and I fall in a hole. The hole's very deep. I'm feeling sorry for myself and I can't get out. And it goes on like this for a while until you say, "Okay, I walk down another road." It's the same thing. We will repeat the experience. That's why history repeating. It's like we have to go over the same lessons over and over until we really know in ourselves what the experience is and what the lesson was.
Well, and that's right now. You actually have a lot of the, like you were saying, with the 2012 was the end of the whole entire history. We're 13 years into this transitionary period, and everything that comes out in media right now is all rewrites. They've been all rewrites for 50 years. All of that, and they're rewriting the rewrites like within the movie. So you have a movie within a movie that's being rewritten because someone's time traveling and rewriting
Yeah.
stories, right? Like it's been going on since, yeah, I would say 50 years, the 70s, because it was with all the Terminators and Back to the Futures and all these different franchises. I mean, that's what they're talking about. Everyone's more concerned with the picture that you're being seen and this message that gets unified by the group, which is the mass, and the whole group will unify some sort of idea where you're actually thinking of an actualization of Skynet rather than Skynet already exists and this is how it's operating, right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So, and
Well,
people
this
It
say,
was
was like
oh,
the
kind of,
well,
80s with TV started repeating. You had TV, and in the 80s it started repeating. Like you'd have repeats on the telly. Everything repeats. But it must be, there's some certain things embedded in those. Like I say, these people creating the stuff are working through. They're maybe not conscious themselves of how this all comes together and what the deeper meaning within what they're creating is. It's again like Silas was saying, that flow state. And then when the repeats come in, it's like, well, there's new people, isn't it? So they need to see the same thing. And so we have these repeats over because the people who were around when they were created, maybe they saw it, they got their lesson, but then there's new people. There's us, the kids of those people. And so the cycle repeats.
do you have something, Linda?
yeah, I was just going to say that that's kind of what my dream was about the other day with the, um, he said uniformity and that kind of thing or whatever, communication. I, I'm not sure I could, but anyway, my dream, I remember this one, it was a, it was a bird, right? It was a bird, simple bird, walking around, but yet all the codes or all the symbolism started leaving it, right? And I saw like water, a water symbol, um, a sun symbol, um, reproduction symbol, that kind of thing, or whatever. And this is the bird's life, right? And it went up into the air. But that's the frequency all the other birds pick up on. Like, that's why they can communicate with each other, because that's there. That's what this dream told me. I don't know if that makes sense or not. And so, for humans to be able to do that, you have to be on the same mindset, which we are not. All the birds are pretty much on the same mindset, right? It's instinct, it's all these other things. They don't live with the wolves. Well, they interact, right? But they can communicate with each other because they pick up on each other's frequency. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, harmonic resonance.
And
They
so,
live in
yeah, and
they
there were
live in a
symbols for
reflective state.
everything like wolves and chairs, even chairs. I mean, it was unreal, this dream with the symbology. And I think that Reagan's last talk brought it out, because I went to bed asking questions about it. Like, is this all there is? Like, where do we go? Like, where do we go when we die? I was asking all these questions before I went to sleep, right? Because that's kind of how I go to sleep. And I was like, is this all there is? And then all these things was shown. Like, it doesn't, it ended up being, it doesn't matter if you die or not, right? It doesn't matter if you go on or don't go on. You're going on as you live. Does that make any sense to anybody? Because that was profound to me. Like, you're
You will
putting
always exist.
this out there regardless of what you think this existence is.
Yeah, well, you're gonna exist anyway. Well, this is not it. That's the biggest understanding we need, is that you will continue. You will continue existing because you've always existed.
Right. And the end of that dream was um I was in, there was this little old lady with mostly white but a little tint of gray to her hair. And we were communicating, right? Um and I said something, or I asked her something about how she looked so young even though she was so old or something like that. And she said, I don't have any skin in the game. And then when I woke up, I realized what that meant, right? It was like, I think I just saw myself, like my soul, or whatever that is. Like, I got a glimpse of it. I don't know if that's what it was or not, but it was, because I wasn't thinking that in my dream, right? I wasn't even thinking that's what it was, which is weird. But yeah, I think lessons come in the dreams, if you ask.
Yeah, you're making communication. You're trying to communicate what you want to learn. This is what Monroe was trying to say. He would have focuses his idea of what he wanted to learn, and then when he would go out of his body, they would come and teach him and show him or give him the roads. It's the related, organized thought anything.
I liked it, Linda.
Anyway, I
Like
wanted to
I
thank
knew.
Reagan for all the symbolism of the last one. So the codes, the breaking of the codes.
I appreciate that. Glad I could help. At least I think. I don't know. Just trying to figure them all out too. You know.
Hi.
Hi, male
So,
369.
so what's the nature of your
Or me.
discussion? I've just no long tuned in.
You just entered in.
Yeah, not too long ago. Are you talking about the Bob Monroe stuff?
Yeah,
Yeah.
more or less. That's kind of the central theme that I've held. I mean, you can talk about whatever. It's I'm more just for talking about any symbolism and expression, but I think like obviously Monroe here and a lot of the others, like you bring up Castanella a lot, or Castaneda. He's very similar, with his writings and such. Me.
Do you know, I came across a man, he's been studying Robert Monroe's work for over, I think it's maybe 50 years. And I'll need to share it because he shares a lot of like interesting things about outer body experience, the astral entities, like the Archons, the Lush Harvesting, prison planet, all this kind of thing. You know, this guy, he was a veteran, and he started looking into. He was in the US military or whatever, but he started looking into the Robert Monroe stuff and things like because he wanted to see his girlfriend, like he was away across the world or whatever. So that's how he wanted to learn how to get out of body. It kind of actually looks like Robert Monroe. I'll send you his channel. He's quite funny as well. His name's Rich. Like, and he always goes, bitch. That's how he talks. It's funny.
Well, do you think you're actually traveling or just in tune with the frequency like a radio?
You travel. I mean, we had a gathering in 2011, so it was all the people who were involved with the Mayan calendar, and I think there was like 20, 50 people from 20 countries or something. I was talking with these guys from Argentina who had set up like a small community, and we were just talking about it and everything. And that night, when I lay down, um, when I closed my eyes, I found myself flying, and I flew to Argentina instantly. And then I found myself looking down upon this, like this community, I guess. So I went and explored, and I looked around and checked it all out. And then in the morning, I went to the guys and said, "Ah, I think I went to your place last night." And I started describing things that I saw, and they were like, "Oh, that's exactly what it's like." So a lot of these things have happened to me kind of spontaneously. I had no idea what it was about, but yeah, I never thought about out of body experience or astral travel or anything like that. But then because I'm reading Monroe, I remember that happened there. And I've done it other times where yeah, you go and look at things. Uh, doesn't matter the distance. It's like you're instantly where you want to be, and that's how Robert Monroe kind of guides himself. Um, and he says it's like an elastic band, so you stretch your awareness to the point where you want to be, and then it snaps, and you're instantly there. So it's like yeah, when you've got some deeper question or understanding of something, you visit somewhere or go to where you need to be to learn the lesson.
Hi, I'm wondering if I can put my hand up. I'm here
Go ahead.
listening. Yeah, I'm Mel 369. Hi everyone. I just
Welcome.
on this on this topic of astral traveling, I've got a bit of a weird sort of story that's happened to me. This has happened to me on 3 occasions. I've had people that I know talk to me and say, "Oh, you visited me last night. You came here and you sat on my bed and you were chatting away to me and it was like it was real. Uh, 3 different people, but I had no sort of idea of doing that. Like it wasn't something that was in my consciousness. It was. Uh, I just sort of looked at them like, oh, really? Yeah, like they were a bit sort of, um, crazy for saying it. Have you ever heard of an instance like that? And what would you maybe attribute it to? Anybody that's got any input on that story, yeah, or can shed any light on it.
Yeah,
Well,
well,
I kind of have some input on that because I did visit somebody in my dream that wasn't aware of the visit, but yet
Yeah. So
they
that's sort of
told
the
me,
opposite.
yeah, but the thing was, when I visited, I gave them details of the visit, and it was
Yeah.
correct.
Yeah,
well,
I thought that, but I wondered whether with me, because I had no sort of recollection of visiting anyone, I wondered whether it was some sort of different type of spirit that was, you know, sort of pretending to be me, because I will, you know what I mean? Like, if it was me, I would have expected some sort of recollection.
Well, that's what I'm saying. I would think that you would also, right? Because
Mm.
I've never come across people that have told me that I visited them, but I actually visited somebody,
Yeah.
um, and they told me that it was real what I saw, even though
Yeah.
they weren't
Yeah.
aware at the time that I was there. But I don't know that I was there. I just think they were open to me knowing the situation they were in at the
Oh, so
time and allowing me to.
you didn't remember going there or being.
out into the second body, which can only
Yeah,
move.
but this person agrees that they probably gave me permission to see this. You just can't go anywhere you want to, in my opinion. Somebody has to give you permission to be there.
And then Robert
Does
Monroe
that
goes
make
and visits
sense?
people, and it turns out in the end he's talking to them, but you're talking to them in their second attention, in their other body. It's not the physical. And so he pinches a woman to attract her attention. And then when he sees her in real life, he says, "Oh, what were you doing at this time?" And it's exactly what he saw. And then he says, "Oh, did you feel a pinch?" And then she's like shocked because she can't remember what happened. And then she lifts her top up and she's got a bruise on her side where he pinched her. This is very early
And
on.
I'm kind of leery about believing sort of the mainstream ideas about this kind of thing because I mean that's just me. I could be wrong.
Well, it's like a protection within the consciousness, I guess, that until you're ready to understand something
Yeah.
properly, you're gonna have caution. You're gonna have emotions attached to. It's why everything's shrouded in the occult and it's all devil worship.
After this whole situation happened with me um, seeing a life of another person, wh- if I didn't have permission, I would think that's creepy to go travel somewhere to somebody else's house without them giving me permission to be there. And that was my um,
But I wonder though if it's got to do with the level of consciousness someone's at. Like there's certain people that you could travel there, but because they're not very responsive to anything but the basic level sort of thing, they don't take that into consideration. So even though they may not have um given permission, that might mean that they just don't realize it's happening because they don't pick up on those more subtle things.
Yeah, but the permission and stuff is related to our physical rules that we have in reality.
Yeah,
Where
yeah, yeah.
this kind of stuff is in another. You're in your second body. You're outside of the normal parameters, I guess, and the
Yeah,
permission is there. it's given through a nonverbal
Yeah,
way.
but you're seeing somebody's physical being at that particular moment, which is real.
But you're not
Kinda.
looking through your physical
That
eyes.
bring I mean, it's just a moral question to me because,
But is
Can,
that
you know,
is there the same sort of morals in the more spiritual realm? Because um, people, entities seem to uh, do things that morally you might be against. You know what I mean? And even in the physical realm, it's only a person's choice whether they keep to any moral boundaries.
do you think sleep paralysis demons relate to what you were talking about? Like you were saying, you've visited people. I've experienced sleep paralysis. It's, like you feel a presence sit on you and hearing things like that. I've not experienced that in such a long time. But what if that's witchcraft, like a entity visiting you, in your sleep state?
It's you visiting you. Until you overcome your fear, you can't move.
yeah, I agree with that because I've had
Mm.
those too, and it was me sitting in the corner with the hood on
Yeah.
in
And you
black.
can't show your identity until you're ready to
Yeah,
perceive what it is.
yes,
It's a
that's
shock.
correct.
It's a deep
Yeah.
shock to our system that brings us out of the unconscious fear, if you like, the caution that we have. And that's why it's all this stuff, witchcraft and everything like this. It's just all unconscious interpretation. Yeah, okay,
Yeah.
there's people who trying to figure out what things are, and it all gets wrapped up in this unconscious fear in the end. Whereas
Hmm.
Robert Monroe says once you leave the body, there's, I think he says there's 7 layers. It's like the rings of Saturn. They're around the world. And so in the immediate layers, once you leave, you've got these beings who are trapped in their emotion. So that he goes to one place and it's just a seething mass of people in sexual, they're so addicted to the sexual impulse that they're stuck in this layer. And then in another layer, there's these like wandering kind of spirits. And so it's those unconscious states what gets people locked into these layers. Like the first layer is the new timers, people coming in. And then you get to the outer layer, there's the old timers. And then you have last timers, the people who are ready to leave. So
Yeah.
we've got to go. He finds it really hard in the beginning to actually traverse this um, band or layer. He says just the slightest movement attracts these things to him. And then they're trying to pull at him and everything. And he starts praying. He said, I've never been religious, but he said, every prayer that I've ever heard, I started praying. And they just laugh at him and say, look at him, he's praying. Like that's going to do anything. And he slowly works it out that he has to move really slowly. And if he stops, then they go away. And then once he gets beyond those layers, then that's when he starts getting in communication with these higher, or the inspects, the intelligent species who start guiding them and showing them. So in a level, it's these unconscious layers that we're trapped in, and all our thoughts are unconscious thoughts. So when you think about somebody else, there's an energy that goes out to that person, and if they think of you, it comes to you. So this going and visiting somebody or appearing in somebody's dream, I've had it many times too, where a friend did a spirit quest, where you sit in a circle on your own. And she was telling me about it, and she said that there was weird stuff going on. And she said all of a sudden, I rode up on a horse and picked it up and put it on the horse, and off we went on a journey. And she said, I don't know why it was you. And I said, I don't remember. But that's what I'm saying. In our second body, we do lots of stuff, but we're not aware of it until you become conscious of the second body. So it's like
Yeah.
having our memories in the physical, but we also have memories in the non-physical, and it's that becoming more conscious that we
Well,
we we can
let
let
me
go of that.
ask you this. Do you think that you have to be connected to um, the spiritual being to be able to visit? Or can you just go willy nilly visit any spiritual being?
No, that you are. That's what I say. We are only a part of the whole, and those other beings are other parts of yourself at a different level, different dimensions. So really what it is they're helping you to do this, to help you remember. And then when you get to
No, I understand all that, but I was talking about the astro travel thing, like going and just appearing somewhere else, so to speak.
but
But
that's
then
what
you're
Robert Monroe was doing. That's what Robert Monroe was doing. He was sort of thinking that he was going out there himself. But then, something changed. He got the whole gateway thing going on, the explorers, and they were going out there and doing all this stuff by themselves, really, with what they wanted to do. And then it just became boring. He said nothing was really happening. There wasn't anything to learn. And then he said, "Oh, what about if we say before we go in, like we leave it up to the other to decide what we're going to do?" And then it all opened up, and they started exploring all these multiple levels. And then he noticed, and looking back through his notes, that these beings had always been there. It was them who were actually lifting him out of the body in the first place. So it's a guided thing, but we don't become aware of that side of things until we reach a certain level.
Well, that's kind of scary after my dream that I met myself, so I might have a lot to look forward to.
Yeah, it's always going to be interesting, and the exploration is just as I say. He's like once you the biggest fear, the biggest conflict anybody can have here is fear of death. And once you let go of that, you sort of gained a level of freedom within yourself, and these phenomena, I guess, can start to happen more easily
can I
because you've let go of the fear.
can I tell you of a guided meditation that I did with a clairvoyant, and there was about 5 of us in the room, and what she did was she we had to close our eyes and visualize what she was telling us. So she created a landscape, and so we were all sort of seeing the same thing. And then we had to, um, in the end, she wanted a particular answer to a question. And so we had to sort of open this box, which gave us the answer. And then when we all sort of came out of it, what became apparent was we all had the same answer. So we were all, she had created the um, scenario that we traveled in our head. And then, so it was almost like she was creating it and we were seeing it amongst 5 people. So that was really interesting.
Yeah, that's like sort of goes along the lines with mass psychosis, though. You can see that experienced, like in the television show Brain Games. They actually show how that
Uh-huh.
happens. Like, there's the
Right.
elevator trick is pretty common, where like someone will go stand in an elevator and then a bunch of other people who are all part of a group together will go stand in an elevator, and they'll all
Mm.
turn away from the door or turn to the left, and the person who's unaware of the group, they'll naturally adjust and they're going to turn to whatever direction the group is. That's like a group or a hive mind type thing. And then guided
Yeah,
meditation,
yeah,
that's very very common too, and
It's
that's what
it's
yeah,
what
yeah.
a
he did.
what a shaman does, in the shamanic stuff. It's
Yeah,
what a shaman does.
witch
They open
doctors.
up the path and guide people on the path. That's like what I was saying when I was in Colombia. We got to know some people, and we were drinking ayahuasca with the shaman, and me and the shaman did have this kind of non-verbal communication happening because my Spanish was pretty crap. But it became a very profound Spanish that I was trying to talk in. Um, but there was another guy, Marco, and he'd drunk so much ayahuasca, and they'd stand around the fire and talk, and he was into psychology, but he'd never had any kind of, full on experience. But then when Taita Kiruin, who was the teacher of the shaman dude we were with, he came to town, and there was like 50 people, and they all drank ayahuasca, and he got his little rattle out and sang a little song, and the whole group just went into what it is. And 8 o'clock in the morning, Marco comes banging on my door. His eyes are lit up, and he's like, "Oh wow." So it's the facilitation. Once you know something, you can facilitate it in others. It's like many times when people took mushrooms, they saw me. Like I came to them and spoke to them, and I have no recollection of that in the physical. But
Oh,
again,
that's interesting. So you didn't have any recollection. That's similar to the experience I said earlier, where these people thought I came to visit them. Do you think that it's possible that it might not have been you? Because that's what I was thinking. Like, I
but it's
didn't,
you on another level. It's a part of you, um,
unless
and
somebody
a need
presented
in
to
them.
you. Yeah,
It's something there that there was a need in them for your reassurance or whatever you talk to them about, and that part of you
yeah,
went off and did that, and you don't have any recollection of it because you're still in a divided state or whatever. You're not aware of what your other self is doing, and that's how we
yeah,
work. I mean, a lot of times, um, these what we say strange things happen, but if we understood that that's the natural function and this is how we do things, it'd be a lot easier to understand.
Well, if we
yeah, yeah,
are, as we're living, putting some kind of symbolism, code, whatever into the air, right? Into the ether, whatever you want to call it, then that's not really us. It's just our experience, right? We're putting it out there. So if somebody can tune into that, that's just because they're thinking about you or something like that. I mean,
Yeah,
that
so
might be
that's how it
feasible.
works.
Yep.
It's the same when my grandmother died. I had to go back to England to see her one more time. Um, so I did all that, and I just lost my job. I just lost my house. Um, it was my birthday when she died, so it was a big, massive shock. But when we were there after the funeral kind of thing, and everybody's crying, and I said, "Stop! We're here to celebrate the life of this woman. Without her, none of us would be here." And everybody sort of clicked and started laughing and celebrating. But when I got back to Holland, um, the first week back, I saw my grandmother in the sky, and she said
mhm,
it's all okay. And within the next day or so, I got a new house, I got a new job, everything just slotted in.
oh
So
wow, that was great.
yeah, and then a few years later, my cousin died. He was only 27. And again, I went to sleep that night when I found out, closed my eyes, and he appeared, and we walked off into this space. And basically, for the next 3 weeks, he was with me, and I was talking, and it was like trying to explain to him where he was at and what was happening and what might be happening next and what had just happened to him. Um, and after about the second week or something, he said, I just got to go somewhere, and he went away. And then the end of the third week or something, he came back and he was standing in the room and he said to me, "All is good," and put his thumb up. The thing was, my
Mm.
girlfriend and another friend were in the room at the time, and they said, "What the fuck's happening? Your cousin's standing there in the room."
Oh, they saw him, your cousin too.
Yeah, they felt the energy that it just, I'm talking to him, and they're like, "What's happening?" And it's like, "Oh, it's okay. He's just come to say goodbye." And that's when he left. So we get over. It's like ghosts and things like this. It's like there's a place where we go when we die to decompress because our life experience is compression, right? So
Yeah,
this whole life we're in is a compression of experience. And so what Bob
yeah,
Monroe explains is there's a place where we go which is familiar to the life that we live, so we can decompress from our living experience and start to understand where we are. And he said there's also a place where religious people go, right? And
mm,
he sees like millions of beams of light going into this place and very few of them coming out. And he deducts from that that it takes a long time for religious people to decompress from their experience.
Yeah, I had an
Have
interesting experience with death this probably just this last couple of weeks. My very, very dear cat, who was sort of 15 years old, was started to go through the death process. So I decided that I would just stay with her and be with her the whole time. And I just sort of nursed her and cleaned her and made sure she had everything she needed. But one of the things that happened was because I was so intensely focused on her, I I started to see inside of her body, and I could see everything starting to come loose and sort of interact in a different sort of way. Like it was, yeah, it was like I was seeing the molecules and they were uh, stretching out and moving in a different pattern to what you would see of someone in a healthy life state, sort of thing. And that was it, and seeing that was just sort of like a natural part of what she was going through. It didn't feel weird or anything, or wow, this is spooky. It was just sort of, in a way, it felt to sort of to me, it was comforting in a sort of comforting because it was sort of showing me the natural side of what was happening. You know? Yeah.
Yeah, but I've just been reading about that. Robert Monroe says they take him and show him a lesson, and he has a dog, and the dog gets killed, and it's that moment of um, connection. These are
Yeah.
the where that energy comes in. That is showing how you love something and the reflection of what you love reflecting back.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah, and I
and
think
that and
because this wasn't sudden, it wasn't like bang, she had a bad accident because she sort of had kidney problems. And so it was sort of like a whole, couple of weeks that
yeah,
we were locked into this sort of psychic sort of bond. And it was, yes, it was unlike anything uh, that we'd experienced, together before. And it was like she was allowing me to understand in such a minute detail that whole process of the physical side of, and and sort of the psychic side of what actually happens.
yeah,
I
Yeah.
I heard a really interesting story, right? So there was this man, and he was going to visit his mother, and when he got to his mother's door, his mother told him not to come in the house or whatever. And then he went back home, and then like this happened again. Like he had a weird feeling, and then he got a phone call where he went to the mother, and his mother told him that his best friend had been killed. And the guy was saying like how his best friend, he was quite a troublesome person, always getting himself into trouble. Like so, he found out that his best friend had got killed, and then one night he received a phone call, and it was actually the best friend that got killed, and his girlfriend was with the man, and they heard the guy screaming on the phone like, don't take me," whatever, as if he was being dragged to hell or whatever, like that. And apparently that's a real story, like that the dead contacted the person through the phone.
I wonder what the complexities of their relationship had been when
It was
they
basically
were alive.
what the guy said was like the him as a friend to the troublesome guy, like he always helped him get out of trouble and things like that. That was what he said. And the dead person on the phone was saying, you can help me," and like he was screaming and all that. Like, I thought
Um,
that's quite spooky. It was quite an interesting story. Could obviously
that
just
is
be a story, but it's quite spooky.
that is spooky because I remember when my father passed away, the real thing that hit me about it was the feeling that there was nothing. I felt, oh, there's nothing I can do to help him if he needs some sort of help. It's like that's gone now, and that sort of weighed really heavily on me because I sort of felt um a lot of bit of sort of sorrow that he was alone, and that I could, this, it was sort of anything that happened to him was out of my hands. Yeah, and that's sort of like the reverse of that. I mean, that would have been, oh, if he'd been there going, "You got to help me," that would have sent you crazy. Yeah.
After the guy he'd actually died, and like the girlfriend was there to like witness the phone call, so it wasn't like a delusion. Obviously, it could just be a story, but you do hear that, like, people,
Oh, look,
if their loved one have died, they've received
a
a call or a message or something, So it's quite weird.
a
Like,
hundred 100%. My auntie died recently too, and I wonder whether the jabs had something to do with that. But after she passed on, um, my cousin found a what do you call it? Like a voicemail message where she was saying, um, after my auntie had passed on, her son took both of her animals, and after about a week, her dog actually passed away as well. And then after that, my cousin found a voicemail that she hadn't heard of my auntie, and it was like my auntie had pocket dialed, sort of thing, and she was yelling to her dog, "Baby, come here. What are you doing? Come here, come here." And we were all shocked by that.
spooky, spooky.
Yeah, that was really spooky. And I thought, what the fuck? Like, this can't be real, sort of thing. It- and I don't know, you know what I mean? It's one of those things that is feeling weird. Like everybody else was sort of, in a way, it's sort of like they thought, oh, that calmed them, or they thought whatever. But for me, it just felt very, I don't know, it's odd, very odd.
The
And
the spookiness.
I wonder whether AI had something to do with it, or you know what I mean? Because it just
I mean,
seemed very weird.
Well, I can tell you probably AI doesn't have anything to do with it because back when my dad died, my youngest daughter was just about to turn 3, and she's named after him because none of my sister's sons just they never named their sons after my dad. So anyway, they were really close, and so when he died, she knew that he was gone. Uh, she just
Mm.
she just knew because she was a child, right? They know.
Yep.
Um, but there's also an aspect of her accepting that the physical body was gone, but maybe something else existed because there was times when the lights would turn on in her bedroom and my other daughter would get up and be like, "Why is there lights coming on?" And I would go turn them off and I would catch her sitting there talking to somebody and she named him Ghosty. Um,
Yep.
and like I said, she was almost 3 years old and she could write her name, right? She
Yeah.
knew how to spell. Well, she knew certain words and things like that. But she always called my dad Papa. So she never really knew his real name, even though she was named after him, right?
Mm.
So anyway, all of a sudden, his name showed up on the wall in crayon. And I asked her, I was like, why didn't you finish your name? She's like, that's not my name. That's Ghosty's name, which was my dad's name. So it was
Right.
like, I kept it there for so long, right? I really did.
Mm.
Because it was so sweet. And my dad used to, at his work, he would get breaks every now and then. He would be in the neighborhood and he would stop by and be like, you got a fresh cup of coffee? And I'd be like, no, but I'll make you some. So I'd make him a fresh pot of coffee, and you know how coffee smells with a fresh pot. Um, and we'd sit and chat. And anyway, even after my daughter had her experiences, like I would wake up in the middle of the night smelling the fresh pot of coffee. Like
Mm.
even even John would smell the coffee. It's like it's weird. So I think they do stick around. I don't know
Oh,
if
yeah,
that's
absolutely.
going through their transition to beyond, or if
Oh, yes, yes. I think it's for the first few days. I've I've noticed the first few days when someone who I've been quite close to passes away, I get a lot of sort of symbolic sort of messages from them. But after a few days, that seems to go away.
yeah, with my mom it's different because me and my mom did not really get along. Um,
Yeah.
she got put in hospice, and I was there for a time, but I wasn't there the day she died. Although somehow I had an inkling to text my sister how things are going,
Mm,
and I got no answer for like almost a minute, and she's like, she just died. I knew, like she was
yeah.
telling me that I'm going. And I still have that text, by the way.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that spookiness is the unfamiliarity with death. Like, it's very strange, because I've been through the process twice. It's a very strange thing. Um, it's spooky, it's a weird thing happens and it's
Oh
very
my
unfamiliar. But
goodness.
our familiarity with it brings understanding.
Sorry, I
So
just got
Hmm.
a memory flashback. See, when I was a child, right? Um, One night, me and my brother, we went to stay with my granny and granda. And when I would stay with my granny and granda, I would sleep in beside my granny. My granny and granda had separate bedrooms, right? And I woke up, it was at like 12 o'clock at night, and I said, Granny, I want to go home. And my brother took me home, right? The next day I went to school, and then my sister and her boyfriend, they came into the school, they took me to the school, and they got me in the car, and they said, your granny's dead, right? So if I would
Oh,
have like stayed that night, I would have woke up to my granny dead. But I had a feeling I just wanted to go home, like
wow.
and then I went and I saw my granny dead on the bed, and I gave her a wee kiss and that. But that is weird. It just came back to me there.
Wow. So you felt probably that she was in that process of dying.
No, I just had a feeling that I didn't want to be there. Like, we would
Mm.
always go to my granny and granda's. Like, had like quite a turbulent home life. So go there kind of for a bit of escape. But I just had a feeling that I wanted to go back home, and it was like very early hours in the morning. Like, and my brother, he took me home. And then I went to school, and then that all happened. Like, he took me in the car, and it was the most horrible, terrible feeling that came over me. But like
Yeah.
I could have woke up next to my dead granny. That was the first time that I ever experienced or saw death. But it is
Wow.
weird, like how I had to go home. I did not want to stay. You know.
Yeah. And I wonder though if our society has been manipulated in a way to take away people's experience with death and dying, and um, and to have it all become very medicalized, and so people don't necessarily have that natural experience with it that people maybe in other societies or more traditional societies or even this society, you know, before this medicalization happened, has put more fear into people about death, sort of thing, because it's sort of like the medical establishment doesn't seem to be able to recognize when someone's dying and provide the actual um it's like we've had that human part of the death taken away, where people would actually gather and actually just be there with the person and understand the process they were going through, and just maybe it's more of a psychically and spiritually supporting them, whereas now it's like a more violent death because, you know, people are got needles poking into them and everything's on them and it's loud and it's not, you know, it's not a gentle sort of um process where they can sort of slip away. It
It's
becomes
quite
a very violent sort of thing that the state has control over. And maybe that's put us into some sort of like a weird sort of psychic energy where we're fearing it because it's not something that we've actually learnt how to deal with.
I think it's interesting the fact we never knew death existed. I never knew death existed until obviously my grandma died, and then you go through life, and then you come across people and they end up dying, whatever. But I never knew what
Yeah,
death was, you know. But like
yeah,
when they said those words to me in the car, something broke within me, my heart shattered, you know, and then to see my granny's lifeless body like on the bed,
yeah.
you know, like so it's weird. Life, the whole experience, life, death, you know, it's weird.
Yeah, it is interesting. It's almost like we have been separated from the actual physical process of life, you know, like coming into the world with that whole experience has been taken over by this medical sort of thing, and the end of life especially. It's like
The,
that they're these two most spiritual times, and
the
they've
people
been
who
abducted, sort of thing.
who work in the hospice, they say, like I've saw TikToks and things, and they say
Yep.
like they know when a patient's going to die and things, like they'll have hallucinations, like their family's there in the room and things, you know.
Yeah.
That story that I was telling you earlier about the man with the phone call, basically his mother saw death on his friend, and that's how she
Yes.
did want him to be around her. I don't know. It was interesting. It's like it could just be a story, but the mother could see
Yeah.
death on people when people were going to die and all that.
Yeah.
Oh, it's just weird.
Because you can. I can see that too. I mean, once you become more aware of the actual process, what happens to the body physically when dying. I don't mean like a freak accident or something like that, but you know, an actual natural breaking down. You can you can then become aware of like what's going on with someone and how long they might be around, or you know what's happening. But I think that but then you separate yourself then from the spookiness of it once it becomes more um aware of the physical thing. I mean, that's what I'm saying would happen with my cat. I just, you know, got that really intense understanding of the physical process, and you can see it on people that you see out in the street or here or there.
No, when my
Mm.
when my cousin died, so I hadn't been in England for a while, and we'd just come back to England, and it was my birthday, and all of my family was saying, "Oh, you know, Carl's here or he's there," and we kept trying to see each other. Um, And then my cousin brought him to the pub, and we were sitting in the pub, and I said to him, "You have to change your life immediately, or you're going to die." So he punched me in the face, and
Oh,
27
yeah.
days later, he died at 27 years old.
Right. So you could
And
tell.
another time in Holland, there was another guy. Um, his girlfriend was about to have a baby, and they had a party. And I don't know where this stuff comes from, but I said to him, "You need to change your life. You're gonna die." And then it put a dampener on the whole party. Everybody got pissed off with me. But like, yeah, 2 years later, he was killed in an accident. A slab of concrete fell on him. And so yeah, this
Mm.
like premonition thing or something. It's like I've done that as well a few times. And it's not nice, but
Well,
it's kind
let
of like,
me ask you this. If you say a premonition out loud, does it make it come true? It's just like,
no, you're trying to change what's going to happen, but you can't anyway. That was what I tried to do. Is like, you need to change your path now. And they didn't. They continued in the same way, and that led them down the path they were
yeah,
already
but
on.
I mean,
I mean,
this is where I come down to. It's like, are we here to save somebody, or just, I mean,
No, we're here to help each other as much as we
yeah,
can.
but telling
And that's what
somebody, hey, if you don't change your ways, you're gonna die. That's harsh.
It says in the Bible you need to warn people. Like if you warn them, then like they won't. They've got a chance of redemption, but they'll die in their sins. Like if if
it,
you if they don't or something like that.
But that
yes,
whole
exactly.
process,
It's a bit like the
when it,
jab, isn't it? I warned people with the jab. You know what I mean? And I really explained exactly what was going on. So they had that choice, you know what I mean, to ignore
It's a
me or to look more
program.
deeply
It's
into it.
people are so conditioned and programmed to have faith in these institutions, and obviously they don't think this is wickedness or like Nazi kind of stuff going on.
Yeah.
Like so you can't blame yourself. Obviously, your eyes to see. You probably thought red flag, red flag. And it is
Yeah,
sad, that I didn't go for it. Because I thought there's something not right about that. My friend, my old friend, she worked in a nursing home and she get forced to take it. You know,
yeah,
and people get the injuries and things like that. It was some sort of genocide and all that, probably. Who knows? But obviously, it's just disgraceful and it's a intrusion, an invasion. So it's
yeah.
quite weird.
But I did feel the need to warn people, you know what I mean? Because I felt that I wanted people to sort of understand what I understood. Um,
Well, this is how
and then,
this
then
is how,
and
I'll just put it out here. This is how I presented it to people, even though I don't know one way or the other if it's doing all this damage that people say it is. I think um, people are sick to begin with in some way, shape, or form. But anyway, I took the opportunity when it arose. There was this one lady that said that she took the flu vaccine, but she was never going to get the other one, right?
mm,
And I said, they're one and the same. And she's just like, I never thought about that. I let her make that decision. And it means a whole lot more when somebody else can think their way through it than if you're condemning them for
oh, look, you're
something.
right. But I think that you've probably at quite a balanced place to be able to do that. And I feel I am now too. But at the time it was happening, I wasn't in such a balanced state, sort of thing. And when people came back and attacked me, which they did, they came back and like I was like the one then that their anger was coming at. That
Correct.
made me,
That
that,
is the way they handle that, because if you put a question to them and they have
yeah,
to answer the question, it's not on you. It's their
yeah,
answer. Yep.
yeah. I mean, I think that the way you're saying is the way to do it, but then you can't do it that way until you balance yourself emotionally inside, sort of thing. Like I, um, I think I've uh, gone to that level now where I have got that balance inside. But while it was all happening, I didn't, because it was like I was maybe in a bit of shock, you know what I mean, about what was actually going on. And um,
No,
sometimes I
I
felt
think
like I
we've
needed
all,
to fight.
yep. Yeah, I
Yeah,
think we've all been through our situations. I'm probably older than you, so I
yeah,
probably had plenty of situations in the past to where I was gung ho, like think about,
yeah,
and yeah, it takes time to come to the conclusion that asking the question and allowing them to answer it puts it
yeah,
back on them, and
yeah,
you're
yeah,
out of
When
the loop.
when
It's not any of your place to save them at that point.
yeah,
when you view it from the GNM perspective, that whatever conflict we face in life, the psyche activates the biological program to heal us at the moment of conflict, right? And so, viruses, vaccines, it's a fear thing. So people act through fear, and then once the fear is relieved, they go into the healing phase, which presents as disease to the medical industry, and they get treated for the disease where it's a healing phase. So it's every time there's an opportunity to for people to face the conflicts that they most fear. And the
Right.
psyche is always in control because it always activates the correct program to heal the conflict.
yeah, yeah,
Yeah, and much of the as far as the savior stuff kind of goes, and our influences on each other and helping, and whether you should help or not help or this or that. Like, really, we can influence each other, but you can't really change somebody. And like when it comes
yeah,
to like anything, as far as like if you're just trying to better anybody in any way, so whether they're on a rocky road to death or they're on a some other dangerous path that'll eventually lead to death quicker, and you're trying to steer them some other way, like, one, you have to know that you can't change them. You can't make someone's mind up for them. You can sit and influence, you can try and force it. I mean, sure, you could go all the way to tying them down and doing an intervention and all that kind of stuff, but I always take that analogy as far as to simplify it all down, you can give anyone a fish, right? Like, that's what you're doing when you're influencing someone. You're just giving them a fish. So when you actually like pose a question like Linda did, or try to make the person actually think for themselves, that's like teaching them to fish. So you teach them how to do it themselves. Nobody wants someone else to do it for them. So if you're coming at somebody and telling them all this information, and it's of great magnitude of shock, they're going to run the other way as fast as hell. So that's kind of,
Yeah,
not a good approach. It's
it's
better to seed.
self-realization, isn't it?
Yeah, it's better to seed that questioning into someone and instill, the ideology in themselves, which is like an inception thing. It can be viewed as manipulation, and manipulation has just been given a negative connotation within our language. It's not necessarily bad. If you change a habit that you have, you are manipulating yourself in order to change yourself. And that is the process that you have to teach another person. And you can't do it by beating them over the head. You got to give them the tools to go and beat themselves
Yeah,
over
but
the head.
you also have to manipulate them with innocence, not um, destruction.
And you have to come
So,
from a heart-centered space.
yep,
Yeah, it's the
because that's the only way
self-realization.
they'll actually listen. to the question.
It's their own self-realization is the most important part. We can only hint or try to guide. I mean, the things that I said, it was just spontaneous. It just came out of my mouth. I didn't think about it. You know, it was just, this is my last opportunity I might get, you know. And I never saw like my cousin, I never saw him again. He died. And the other guy, I never saw him again either. And it's just that opportune moment, I guess, of trying
Yeah, and
to
I mean,
give
I
him
I
some
take
realization.
every opportunity that comes up with the religious sect that I run in contact with. If there's a funeral or something like that, I just kind of in or a viewing or whatever, I just kind of bring it up that it's it's kind of weird that they would embalm y- people to keep them away from the dust of the earth. And they just look at me like with a blank stare. So I'm putting the thought out there
It
to
kind of makes sense
Christians.
though. If you bury somebody's body in the ground, they might, you know, possibly remain tethered to it rather than it being burnt in the fire and
Yeah, but
gone.
they embalm them, they put them in a casket and they put them in a vault. They
Yeah,
protect
that's
them
what I mean.
from ever becoming dust. And that's kind of what I bring up to Christians.
Yeah,
It
yeah,
it's
that's what
not
I'm
in a
saying.
bad
It's like
way. It's not like I bring it
it,
up like, oh, I'm judging you or whatever. I just put out a question. Like why would they do that? Like why 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 go along with this, you know, thing that pretty much
but
prevents you from becoming dust?
Hi, like
but
the
again,
ancient Egyptians, the pharaohs, like how embalmed they are, but they say apparently you'll never find the body of a real pharaoh, like how they excavate the tombs and all that. But like it is weird how they do preserve them and how they all the thousands of years you look at Ramesses, like how preserved that is. Like why if the spirit is left the body, why does it need the vessel still to be preserved or intact? Like, is it going to turn back into the body and that's going to resurrect and transform into what it was before? Is that the idea? That is quite fascinating.
I don't think Christians even think about that. I
but
don't think
again,
Christians think about that at all.
Well,
if you
Jesus rose after 3 days. They put him in a tomb for 3 days, the body, and then says Jesus rose after the 3 days.
if you look at it from again from Monroe's perspective of we're here in this development of our left brain and the analytical logic reasoning. You could say that, you know, what we were talking about before, the Western medicinal kind of how they deal with death is the unconscious like byproduct of our left brain thinking. You know, all of this stuff that we've tried to do is that unconscious state of trying to figure things out with our left brain, but not having the actual um, true method. You know, and in say
Well,
like
I can tell you this that I hear about a lot more people getting cremated these days, at least here in my area.
I mean like you know the Tibetan like the Bardo and stuff. What they do is you know they gather around the dying person, they rub their hands and feet and assist them in moving over, and they recite the Bardo to them so that they can actually kind of understand where they're at. It was kind of similar what I did with my cousin, trying to describe to him. I mean, I wasn't here. I was there with him. I could see what was going on, and I was trying to describe to him where he was at and what's coming next, even though I had no idea what it was about. And you know, I had just finished reading the Tibetan Book of Living and Dying, the Tibetan Book of the Dead. So I don't know. It's like I'd already received the instruction myself of how I could guide him. Again, the psyche knows what's coming next, and
Yeah.
so we get the information we need to prepare ourselves for the conflict or the what's going to happen. the experience that's coming next.
When you
At
look
the
at
end of
this
it,
whole experience called life, we are living in like a conditioned place, like a construct. We do experience programming and things like that, so it is a
we're in the
design that
unconscious.
you're in. And is
We're
that
in the
why
unconscious,
everybody
hence
is?
why it's a dream. Reality
Sorry,
is a
I
very
stopped you
dreamy
there, Renee.
space because it's unconscious.
No, but I'm wondering, is that why everybody's wanting to get out of the body and things? Because a lot of people do believe we are in some sort of prison planet. If you look at our lives, we are bound by conditions, how it's designed here. And you can have
Oh,
Yeah,
the keys to the
that's
city,
very
the
psych.
golden ticket, and you can move anywhere. You can fly across the world and all that. But if you've not got any tokens for the carnival ride, nobody's going anywhere. This is a design, and we even the different states, it is conditioning, and it's somebody has made it, and
absolutely.
we're living in this
We're all
construct, having the
participating
experience called
in.
life.
We're all
Yeah.
participating in it. If you have
Oh,
unconscious thoughts, you're feeding it. This is where we're
that's it.
at. We're in the side bank, in the unconscious part of our mind. That's why life is a dream. It's so strange how things happen here that we can't really differentiate between reality and dreaming.
Yeah.
How our dreams represent reality
But
because
I
we are
would
all
also,
feeding it. We're all feeding it with our unconscious thoughts. That's why meditation and these practices to free your mind from thinking so that you can align yourself with the conscious path that you're supposed to be on. Most people are dreaming, most people are asleep. That's why these words are always bandied around now. The sleepers, the NPCs, the awakened, the awakening. It is that on a different level, on a true level. That's where we're at.
When you
Everything
look
that's
at
happening in history is all unconscious, and they're
a
not
computer
now.
game, if you know the cheat codes,
yeah,
then you know
exactly.
how
There
to
are
play
cheat codes. Yes.
the game, obviously we're born into ignorance and then we live and we learn, but I wonder if there's actually beings that have incarnated here. They know it all and
Yes.
they're just flying
That,
through life, you know?
yeah, I'm
Apparently,
telling you something. That's what's going
there's
on.
thousands of
This is going on. The reason that I've sort of come to this conclusion is if you look at those lamas and stuff up in Tibet, and I also believe a lot of these what they call elites or whatever, families. I do believe that they hold this knowledge, and we are just stumbling through this Maya sort of thinking, what the fuck's going on here, right? Because with the lamas, they are actually, the high lamas are actually not dying, but they are transferring their soul from body to body. A person who I know, a Nepalese boy, when he was younger, his aunt and uncle were in the river, doing some things, and his uncle got washed away, sort of thing. And he said what happened at that point was his uncle's spirit jumped out of his body and went into his auntie. And after that, everybody in the family and the community knew that there was two spirits, his auntie and his uncle, living in the body, and they would talk to them both, like at the same time, sort of thing. They might talk to the auntie, talk to the uncle. So I do think there are people with a knowledge of um, this particular ability, and they've been using that, and that's the why they become such enlightened beings, or they know so much and how everything works, because we keep dying and then we're reborn and we've had our memory wiped, and I think they're not actually dying, but they just keep transferring their soul from body to body.
Do you
That's
think it's
what
because
I think.
maybe they have experienced other realms out of this construct and they've made a choice, a conscious choice, and because
That's one
obviously
way,
they're powerful
and
like a
that's what
god,
they
so they
would.
say, like, I've just got to stay
Yeah,
here and I'll jump into a new avatar.
mm,
I believe in
mm,
all this stuff, like I think it's quite fascinating.
yeah. I think it is. I think that that's one way, and if we all believe that that's what's going on, it seems very benevolent. but then you have to look at both sides of the coin and wonder whether it's for them to sort of increase their power in this realm. Do you know what I mean? Because if you were here and you had lived through, 1,000 years, imagine what you know and the power that you have compared to just being an average sort of person that just has only this short number of years to actually know everything, and then you forget. And you have to wonder, because in the scheme of things, how are things going in this world? Well, it seems to be getting worse and worse, sort of thing. So are they
Yeah.
just, is that the way that they are just manipulating this realm? And that's how they can do their resets, that's how they can do this and that, because they know everything that's gone on, you know? They know how everything works. They've got, they don't have to study anything. They don't have to relearn things over and over again. They can just keep manipulating because they know the cycles, because they've always been here. Yeah.
They're the most trapped.
Yeah, I
Once you
feel
The
I
mo-
understand that
feel
you're
worse
supposed
for them. I feel the most pity
yeah,
for them.
Yeah,
they're
I
the
think
most
it's more
trapped.
simple than
Every
that, though.
but
I
every life you
really
live,
think,
you're taking on a load from the experience, which prevents you from leaving. So the more times you stay here, this is why Monroe says it's like to reach escape velocity, to go back to where you came from. You have to be
yeah, but
light.
if somebody was coming back, or the powers that be, so to speak,
but they
knew
weren't coming
who.
back. They weren't leaving. They weren't leaving.
No, I think they were leaving. This is. I think it's more simple than that. I think that they chose the people that um they allowed kids to be kids, and
Who was
just
they?
grow
Who,
from
who,
that. And they wrote
who was
down
they?
things. I don't know.
Who was they?
We talk
Yeah.
about they. So,
Yeah.
But
but there's
the
there's a
It's just a
system
underlying,
word
here.
to
yeah,
use. It's just a word to
It's
use.
just a word. It's just a word. But anyway, there's a system here that has recorded the cycles of life, and that's what they go on. It's not that they've been here for 1,000 years or whatever, and they
But
or
if you
whatever.
talk to the if you look into the Dalai Lama and a lot of the other high lamas, they're saying the opposite to what you're saying. They're saying, yes, they have been here for 1,000 years.
Aye, but they
yeah,
won't be
They,
the Dalai Lama, the one you see on the television and all that. That's obviously not got to be a real godhead super power. That'll be a
but no, no.
front
But what
a
he's
puppet.
saying is that they're using, because they've spent all of their societal energy into the opposite of what the West has. They put all of their society the energy into understanding this unconscious realm, and so what they have been able to understand completely is that when there's that moment of death, you can go out into the bardo, or alternatively your spirit doesn't have to leave the earth. They can inhabit another body. So basically, what happens when the Dalai Lama dies, they will go and find his next incarnation that he's gone into, and by asking a series of questions, they'll work out that this is the new Dalai Lama. So he's not actually passing away. He's just like kangaroo hopping into a new body.
Yeah, but you're saying, I mean, you're implying that the mind and the soul coexist without a physical body. And I don't think I don't know that that's true.
Yeah,
but it
well, that's
does.
what they say. That's what the Tibetans say is true.
When we dream, we don't have
Um,
a body. Like when we dream, we are not the body. You know.
exactly. And I've had a personal experience in meditation, where I was in the Nada Brahma sitting meditation, where I actually looked down at my mind and body and realized that's not who I am.
Yeah,
I
but you're
know your
talking about
identity,
two
you're
different
not
things right now.
conditioning labels. This is all programming. We are a conscious spirit. We are life. Life is
Yeah,
in us. We're experiencing life, like they'll say,
yeah.
like
Not the mind
Yeah,
or the body.
but your conscious soul, whatever you want to call it, doesn't have a skin in the game. It's not materialistic. So it wouldn't.
But from the
I'm
spirit, everything emerges. In the beginning was the word,
yeah,
mind. Everything in creation comes from thought. Everything, if you look around, this is all nothingness at first, and it was manifest, and now it's part of your experience, even your physical avatar, the
exactly.
body, all this. So it really is strange being a human being. I really think it is the maddest thing in the world, and I hope to God I get all my powers, and I can master the dream because I need to break free.
Yeah, yeah. Because the body and the mind don't really have any skin in the game, because that's not the essence. You know what I mean? That's just like, if I can watch my body and my mind, it'll just go on mechanically without me.
Yeah, but you're
If you get what
saying
I'm
the
saying.
soul comes back,
I,
and the
I,
soul can jump bodies into a
yes,
new
yes,
being.
yes,
And
that's right.
remember everything the mind does. I don't
Yeah.
know that that's true.
But that's what they're saying is true. That's what that's the essence that in Tibet in Tibetan Buddhism, that's what they do, and that's what they are claiming to do. And I'm just broadening that, saying, uh, do other groups that are not so open about things also have that
The pharaohs,
knowledge and ability?
the
Well,
pharaohs, obviously them.
there's a bunch of groups making that claim. That's not
Hmm.
just the Tibetan monks only.
But it's
There's hundreds
Indian,
of groups
yeah.
that make that claim. You're talking
Yeah,
about
well, I would
what
imagine
they're
it's
talking about is
probably
biodigital convergence. It's not even actually spiritual. It's completely left brain, logical, led material. They're presenting it with a spiritual front though. So like
right.
it's total horseshit. Like it's the biggest grift there is. The Dalai
What
Lama,
why do you say that?
all
See, I
that.
was trying to ask the questions, Reagan, and you just came out and just gave the answer.
Well, I
Sorry.
was running the event.
But you,
I
but
don't
you
know.
haven't written. But how do you, Reagan? Why do you think it's horseshit? And what do you mean by bio digital convergence sort of thing? Like, what's the mechanics of it?
Well,
That they're saying?
what you just described, what I heard through like transliterating it a little bit is that trying to bring it all into this coalescence of uh, the convergence of all things and beings, but it's in a man-made way. That's the whole problem with it, and it's like
Yeah, exactly.
it's like you're
Oh,
saying
I
you
do get
are,
what
yeah.
you're.
It's the
I mean, I get
Terminator
what you're
story.
saying. I
It's
get what you're saying, but it seems to be a sort of natural um way, a natural thing that they do. I know that they do have certain sort of ways of interacting. I was once sitting watching a monk that came out here, and I was at some sort of conference, and it was quite early in the morning, and he was sitting on the stage chanting. And as I was watching him, I watched a blue light come out of his body and completely go around him for about 6 foot, and it was sort of like pulsing out more and more. So I understand that they understand the mechanics, I suppose, of things that the West and the average person hasn't looked into, and doesn't really have much of an idea of how these things operate. And it seems like that society has been focused on working out how those things operate for a long time, you know. They haven't been interested in developing the way the West has. They've been more focused on understanding this sort of spiritual side of things, and so
Well,
they've gotten
may they find all the answers because they're making the effort to explore consciousness, and you know,
yeah,
so may they find all the answers, you know, like
yeah,
I respect the Buddhists and things, you know, like but God bless them, you know, like they're open mind and learning and spiritual, peaceful people, you know,
It's a way of holding a
teachers.
lineage of knowledge of a revealed. So you have
Yeah,
the
but there's
Tama and
not
the Tet.
there's not one way to get to consciousness or whatever you want to call it. It's
But the
to each his
truths that were
own.
discovered are rediscovered over and over through the Tama and the Tet relationship. So they come back so they can discover the same lineage teachings to guide people forward. But again, it's the Western part, so the left hemisphere again, this left brain part that we're exploring, that we're developing. So
mm,
their whole culture is in the right brain, in the East. So
yeah,
so it's all metaphorical in pictures and stories, and yet it's like a secrecy, if you like, even to them, because the terma are hidden, and then the Turton is born and discovers the terma which has been hidden, and it might be in a crack in a rock somewhere in the Himalaya or wherever. So again,
yeah,
they're on their own kind of creative quest to maintain this knowledge through time, where we
yeah,
in the
yeah,
West are trying to analyze everything and pick it all apart, and that leads to this unconscious kind of uh, recycling of where we're at. You know, this is how we become so, how life's become so um, di- divided or separated from the natural function. We're doing it to ourselves through the development of our left brain,
oh
and
look,
that's why
absolutely, and
it's
you see
spooky
it,
and you know, supernatural, paranormal. It's spooky to us because the left brain can't really understand it, whereas the right brain can, because it functions on symbols and non-physical representation, non-linguistic explanations. That's why I was saying earlier on when we started that these little pithy phrases and stuff, which these teachers speak on the unconscious left brain level, you go, oh, that's really nice, and so
yeah,
simple. But once the mind becomes like the hemisync thing is to synchronize both hemispheres, so then consciousness opens up, and those little pithy sayings have multi-leveled meanings, which are deeply profound and personal. And that's the quest we're on, to discover these truths within ourselves, not to look for the external teacher, if you like. And that's why our
yeah,
Western civilization is set up in the way it is through education and all of the things we do. There's a structured hierarchy in that left brain knowledge, and yet it doesn't actually get us to where we need to go because it's a divided mind. And
yes,
it's the
absolutely,
unified mind that is getting into the conscious, and that's why all this stuff's coming through again. Like the same um, left brain things are happening, and it seems like everything's getting worse and it's more control. But that's just the unconscious fear recycling within itself, and the keys, or the, you know, the things the tools we can use are now, like, that's why I don't know, this is coming up. Robert Monroe and all of these different things that I've learned in my life are guiding to the, you know, it's the same point. It's about letting go of the body, letting go of who we think we are, and opening to the totality of the self. That it's not the body or the soul or these things. It's mind. That we are in the quantum dimensional space at the moment, which is the domain of potentiality, which is pure energy. And now we're moving into the the dominion of time, the hyperdimensional theater of pure mind. This is why this is happening. This is why all the unconscious is now being fully expressed, because it has to be cleared out before we can move into that true knowledge and the true understanding of the totality of what we really are. According to Monroe, that when this energy pattern was created and we came here, we've all been here all this time because life becomes addictive. And he says something like, oh yeah, on your first time in and you have your experience and then you're on your way out and you go, I just want to go back and I'll be a female next time and see what that's like. And then on the next time around, you're just not getting that lift, if you like, to push yourself out. So then you go, I want to see Paris. And you come back again,
Um,
and that's
so,
why
so, so
everybody
that,
now has got a bucket list. Why is a bucket list so important these days? It's like, because that's
yeah,
the
yeah,
last time. It's like, I want to do this before I die. It's becoming so
yeah.
like, evidence, if you can see it, that people are now, this is my bucket list. This is what I've got to do. So again, it goes back to that sleeping lesson where everybody goes when they sleep, to get rid of all of your worries, what happened on the daily, and do something each day towards resolving those things. And then your list C is to do the things you want to do. And that's where,
Because
like,
that keeps us in the
do what thou
material,
wilt.
isn't it? That's trapping us into the world of desires and the material. It's sort of like saying, yeah, you know, don't leave us. Sort of, it's what the Buddhists are sort of saying, that you've got to get rid of those attachments. That
Yeah,
that's what's tying us
the
into the
unconscious, our unconscious
mm,
desires, our unconscious thoughts, our unconscious worries. It's all like a cloud of distraction that prevents us from
and
proceeding in the, do
It's
what
the
thou wilt.
baggage.
Is like,
and I mean,
do
we even
what you want to do, and then that gets all clouded up
mm,
in occult
and
and all this.
we can even feel that now, because I feel like there's been a shift in sort of, I don't know, the conscious field that I'm in anyway, is that a lot of these things are now cycling round, and I will be viewing those things that I had this weird attachment to, or some strong emotional feeling about, and it'll be coming back up and in a similar thing. And I can realize that it's a similar pattern because I understand a lot of the unconscious symbols of what's gone on before. So I recognize that, oh, this is that situation replaying. And then we get to experience that, but um, actually the way we interact in that experience has changed with the new knowledge. So it's not what doesn't affect us the way it affected us the first time, where it
Yeah,
might have had a really profound impact. Now we get to do it, but we get to do it clearly and consciously, and we can see it. We can see it from a multi-dimensional perspective, rather than just initially we did it from the 3D perspective. Now we're understanding of so much more of the hidden aspects of it, and that sort of thing. So then we can. It's almost like, I wonder, is that we can then clear it out, and it loses it, and the hooks that it had are taken out of us, because now we understand it on a much deeper level, and we don't need to keep experiencing it.
yeah. Once you release the energy or the
Mm.
unconscious fear or whatever we've got with it, then that's what I'm saying. The more um, we practice conscious thinking and conscious being, it's easy
Yeah,
to face these things, and they're not as impacting upon us.
yeah,
So again, it's a function of this left brain thing, that it keeps us. We always catch things in our attention, and we want to know why. And that constant curiosity is what it's all about.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah.
it's always this left brain thing catches something. Oh, what's that? Oh, why is it like that? You know, and
Yeah.
that's how we break things open, and we solve, you know, the issues that at first seem like, you know, you're helpless. Why is this happening? And then
Mm.
as you become more developed in this process, those things drop away, and you know, things that you've never thought would happen. They start to, that's what the synchronicity and stuff is about.
Oh,
That
yeah, yeah.
really,
The
it's
synchronicity is,
yeah, it's so beyond our normal understanding to try and think that
yeah.
every single thing that happens here is completely synchronized. This is what
Oh,
time
yeah.
is. Time is the synchronizing factor of the mind that we're all participating at different levels within our level of understanding what conscious is. And yet,
Yeah.
most, if you like, are remaining in that unconscious by not dealing with the issues or the conflicts that arise, even though it's a natural
Yeah.
function. And it's all personal that we decide ourselves everything that happens. There's no blame, there's no opposition, there's no dualistic thought about it. Once you consume those dualistic thoughts, you get to the
Mm.
singular point of that understanding, and that knowing brings peace. So then you can understand how the body, the mind, the brain, if you like, the barometer of your own experience is the more peace you feel within yourself, the more the
Mm.
knowledge percolates within you, the more peaceful you become. The more grounded, the more
Mm.
solid in your
Oh,
understanding, you know?
absolutely. Absolutely. And then when you can go into that conflict situation and you're not, there's no hooks of that emotional tug of war going on or anything like that. Actually, your energy just actually can transform that
Yeah,
that situation you're in, because everybody um loses it, because there's no, you're not reaching out to sort of engage, you just still, and everything else sort of has to recalibrate to your stillness.
because you're now operating in a conscious way. So when we see everything that's going on around us, people are participating in the unconscious. So,
Mm.
you know, for example, the things say like the flu season. So if you're being bombarded in your unconscious mind with all this doom and gloom and horrible stuff going on all the way through the summer, and then suddenly the picture changes and it's like, oh, it's Christmas coming up, so we've all got to be happy. And then people are
Yeah.
in fear, oh, I don't want to get sick. And then they go and get the flu shot, which then alleviates their fear. And then they go into the healing phase, so they do get sick. And
Mm.
everybody's doing this all the time. And the misunderstanding or the lack of knowledge in the Western side is that, you know, we don't understand the process, so it just compounds again and again and again. It's just ignorance. There's no
Yeah.
willful evil acting upon anybody. It's just people's unconscious participation in this, you know, program, if you like. Whereas if you
Mm.
become conscious within it, then you refuse to participate, and it goes away, and then the understanding comes in that you can start to see why everybody's acting in this way and the effect of acting in that unconscious program. This is the result.
Mm.
And hence it's all about being, you know, take it upon yourself, self responsibility within your own consciousness to
Right.
identify the unconscious
But
program and shift out
at
of
the
it, you know.
same at the same time though, the physical body is slowly dying. So you have to
No, the
accept both.
physical body is regenerating
Yeah.
itself all the time through the conflicts that it faces.
So
Every
it's not
time
going
you
to
get
live
sick,
1,000 years. That's
if you
you're
have to, you
you're
can.
no, you can.
Anything is possible.
Well, I mean, that's what people want to believe, but you have to accept both of those aspects. The mind
It's not
grows
part
and
of
the
the
physical
natural
body
function, of course.
dies.
Yeah, this
Well,
is
I
the
mean,
natural
if
function.
you want to believe that you can live 1,000 years, that's fine.
The power of belief though, I remember I was listening to like a meditation thing, right? And the man was saying like, if there's a rope on the ground, it's just a rope there, right? But the mind, like believes it's a snake, you know, like, and then fear arises and all that within yourself, because you believe a rope to be a snake when it isn't a snake. It's just a rope. So the power of beliefs are mind. We really need to understand our mind, what we are, um this whole life, you know,
Yeah,
because
but
like
the physical
we're no
body and the
robots, we are
soul
alive
are
beings and we
two
deserve
different
life,
things.
a good life, a happy life, you know, like better than what we've been subjected to here, you know, through people's ignorance or even through our own and things like that. So it is like our birthright to seek knowledge, and to try and understand ourselves and lives, and ascend for these lower states and programs and conditionings. You know, that is our birthright.
Belief is one thing, and knowing is vastly different. You can
Mm.
believe anything you want, but actually knowing something is way, way different. And that's the key. That's like, religious stuff. You're believing in something, not knowing it. And the knowledge is maintained out of your reach because of
Look at
belief
the
rather
programming
than
here,
knowing.
though. They make you believe in Santa Claus, you know, and then they tell you, oh, Santa's no real, or like the Tooth Fairy. All these kind of programs to like deplete the power of the mind, you know. Like, so if you believe
I know.
Santa's real, you have that wonder, and then take away,
It's
you
your,
know, like, so it is programming.
no, it's your unconscious participation and your parents' unconscious participation that
And the
creates it.
majority of people, like, even what something that I came to like observed, it was New Year, and everybody setting off fireworks. That's programming, you know, like even the Guy Fawkes night or Christmas time. All this is programming. This is shaping our lives, you know, like
That's right. Yeah.
You
Yeah.
always have the choice whether you participate or you don't. It's
But when you're
personal.
ignorant,
So if you
if
want to
like
stay
when you're
asleep,
a child, you believe in
if you
Santa
want
because
to,
you're told that's what you believe. But you, like, as a child, unless you're born all knowing or whatever, you don't know.
That,
You
that's sort
yeah.
of the
yeah, but
difference with the hive mind and your own mind, because
yeah,
you can sort of even go into one and the other, like you can step into it if you're aware, and you can step into it with awareness, and then you can step out of it, and it doesn't change that peace and that feeling within you, you know, because the 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 programming is sort of saying, you know, to fit in, you have to do this. These are the steps
stay asleep.
it to stay asleep, to actually you
Like
know,
I
fit
didn't
in
believe
with
in
us and
Santa.
to accept it.
I didn't
Yeah.
believe in
But then
Santa,
once
but
you
then
realize,
I knew Santa wasn't real when I found the Christmas presents in my mum's wardrobe. Yeah.
yeah. Like this Christmas, I walked down the road and I was feeling fantastic because I was interacting with the weather, with the wind, with everything. And I had a realization, you know, I'm so at peace and I don't have any of those Christmas hooks in me. Like, it, you know what I mean? Like, it could be any day because that is just the in overlay, isn't it? It's the overlay um, framework for people to, you know, go through to stay asleep.
But but that's
So
why
we,
Monroe says as well that, when he goes to the sleep learning center, it's vast. He says as far as
yeah,
the eye can see of these people in this space learning this basic lesson. So
yeah,
they're all still participating in the unconscious reality what they find themselves in, and they're still going
yeah,
there every night to get the lesson. You know, so it is a personal thing to
Yeah, everyone
discard
buys
all this stuff.
the
You know,
sprinkles on the cupcake, right?
I mean, when I was
Mm.
15, I left school, and it was the first year I decided I wasn't going to do Christmas with my parents. And my mom and dad were kind of like, "What?" I said, I'm going to go visit some people." And they was kind of a bit taken aback. Oh, you're not going to be here for Christmas? And I said, "Well, no, it's okay, isn't it?" And they sort of, "Oh, yeah, okay." But it's like breaking the pattern. And once we break the pattern, we see it for what it is. As long as we stay in the pattern, then you can blame anything you want for the reason why you're in it. But it's yourself that hasn't broken the pattern to get out and see what's on the other side of it. And it's like that with anything. We're not forced in any way to do anything. We go along to get along through our own laziness, that we don't feel it's important to break out from the group and set off on our little path on our own. But eventually, that is the
Yeah, but
deal here.
doesn't this come back to we consent to that frequency if we're in it?
Yeah, that's what you're
Yeah.
doing. You're participating through your own consent. There's no anybody forcing you. I mean, it does get a bit that way because of the unconscious ignorance. But if you try to stand up against the system, they can get you and throw you in jail and force you. But then we go back to the start where we were. Reagan was saying about the movie. So, do you want to be the wild unconscious animal, be well known and have whatever you want here, or do you be the caged one in solitary confinement? And it is through that solitary confinement that we find the self. And then once you find yourself, you know that that's the only one you need to rely on. You don't need to rely on anybody else.
I don't know if most of the people here were for the first portion there.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, what I was getting at with that though was I'll kind of reiterate it in a short version here. Because what I was getting at was like a wild animal and a caged animal, right? If you put them together in a cage or in some scenario where they're going to be together and duke it out, most cases the wild animal will defeat the caged animal. And then what I was
Yeah.
trying to show was like with mankind, the difference, that small difference between us, because there isn't much. There's still, I would say, a consciousness in animals, in all life, I would say. But man specifically, right? We at least think we're special, or we have a difference comparatively to most things, and that is the caged man actually can defeat the wild man. It's really like a 50-50 shot in the
100%.
analytics.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's kind of like, do we live in the wild unconscious, or do we go into the solitary state and become conscious? You know what I mean?
Yeah, and this
We're
being a
taming,
physical place
you know.
and
So
with
when you have a
boundaries.
caged,
Yeah.
so when you have a caged animal, we'd say they're tamed. You know what I mean? So it's like taming our wild unconscious mind, if you like. When we go into a solitary state, we're taming that mind. And like he says as well, will he win? It doesn't really matter. I might win now and I might lose later. It's not the goal of the process is to win anything. You drop your expectations. Where the wild unconscious one, he's like the star, with all the fame on the outside. And yet the one who takes the solitary confinement is not seeking any fame or anything like that, and not even seeking to win.
Yeah. It's more of
Yeah.
a place of mind, really.
Yeah,
And it's like what you said earlier, where like the mind and the body and the essence are all different, but they are all connected in the animus form that you're operating as. And that's where I'm trying to talk about that cage. It's actually a delta, it's a triangle. And I know Linda likes the symbol I had to stop the share screen because it was messing up the audio. I still have a recording going right now. I was gonna stop that as well and just kind of going. We can just keep discussing openly. I don't need to record 10 hours or 6 hours of content. It's a lot to go through. So, um, but yeah, there's a pyramid picture I have. I can put it in the chat real quick. Sure, I got it right here somewhere. But
Yeah,
it's
you
got the
can
Yeah, that was
sulfur,
continue
great.
there.
Yeah.
mercury, and
Hmm.
salt in the corners. Yeah, there we go.
You can do more of the presentation tomorrow.
Well, I got the other one for Sunday, right? Part 2, and so I don't know. I'm just kind of working this all out, right? I'm just starting up, so technical
Yeah,
difficulties and problems are expected. I don't
all
have
is
any
good.
expectations really, so that's what like. There's gonna be arguments, there'd be disagreements, there'd be problems, there'd be all the stuff, and it's all good, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So
Oh, well, thanks, Reagan, for providing the space to have this interesting conversation. I've really enjoyed it. It's really a notch up of most conversations that I've been having lately.
I'm glad to hear that. And that's, I mean, I'm just as appreciative to finding this place. I kind of met up with Silas and he developed this server, probably 6, 7 years ago. And yeah, that's what, like, I wanted to produce stuff back then, but my work life kind of took a different turn at the time. So now I'm back at it and hopefully, get these going 2, 3 times a week, couple different topics, some open discussions. But for the most part, like, I just like all the different perspectives and views, and that's one of the biggest issues I find, in my experience with everything and the purpose of life and being here and all these kind of questions, these big questions, life questions come up so much. Um, it's a struggle, yeah, but people struggle with it in such a way that they turn positive things negative and negative things positive, and even all of that, like the good and bad aspects. It's just it's very confusing, it's very difficult, and it's very hard to talk about all this stuff. And so to get into a space to have people to be able to discuss these things and not get so heated that they go their separate ways or create major divisions or fractions, it's rather difficult. So I've been very happy and very appreciative of everyone here and all the things that we've been able to do, and the chats, discussion, sharing information, and it does things for you in your actual life too. It's a really amazing thing all around.
Absolutely,
I feel
100%. Yep.
through these discussions and stuff, and the actual material that we're getting into. Um, I'm already doing these things. I'm gonna do more of this practicing and stuff. So, I mean, if anybody else is up for it, we could um, keep a record of what we're doing and on a practical level, so that we can discuss these other states, if you like. I mean, that's what I say on New Year's Eve. I had again a spontaneous kind of out of body experience. I feel this is probably going to get a lot